Every time a tragedy strikes, the headlines are all the same. Thoughts and prayers. School shooting, thoughts and prayers. Cities leveled by a natural disaster, thoughts and prayers. Innocent lives lost to war and genocide, thoughts and prayers. But here's the truth. Thoughts and prayers are not enough. Thoughts and prayers are not going to rebuild homes. They're not going to heal the wounded. They're not going to protect those who have lost everything. What we need is action. We need real change, real effort in the real world. So today, Dr. Ben and I are here to offer more than platitudes. We're here to do something that actually matters. We're raising money for an amazing organization called Doctors Without Borders, an absolutely unimpeachable group of heroes that are saving lives on the front lines of the several humanitarian crises around the world right now. They're on the ground in this moment, in Palestine, in Sudan, in Yemen, in Chad, in Congo, in Myanmar, and beyond. We need your help to give them the support that they need to make a real difference. Whether you're an atheist or a theist, if you are a human being and you want to help other human beings, please help us turn empathy into action and make a real positive impact on the world around us by donating to Doctors Without Borders. You can use the donate button directly below this video or use the links in the description. If you can't do that, that's totally fine. Doctors Without Borders is not an atheist organization, but we are. So while we continue to raise money to save lives all around the world, if you would like to talk about why these doctors and not your gods are the ones who are putting in the hard work right now, pick up the phone because the phone starts right now. The phone starts right now is how I ended that. Instead of the show starts right now. I realized what I said the second the words left my mouth. What an insanely stupid way to end a passionate moment for me. Hi, everybody. I'm Forrest of the Valkais, and I'm joined today by the amazing and handsome Dr. Ben. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing all right. I'm very excited to be here for the XP show on this kind of weekend marathon of this fundraiser. And I love this organization. I, in fact, got into medicine partly because of this organization, and I'm hoping to someday work with them, although I have some more qualifications I need to build up before I can get to that place. But everybody should absolutely hit that donate button. All of this goes a super, super long way.
Yeah, it's an incredibly cool thing to do. Also, just speaking as a scientist, I can tell you that it has been scientifically proven that donating to Doctors Without Borders makes you 13% more handsome. So if you want to become a more handsome person, just smash that donate button and instantly you'll become 13% more handsome. I've been raising money for Doctors Without Borders for most of the year now. Jesse Jerdak and I started this cool thing called Roll for Initiative, where we played a tabletop game to try to raise money. And the ACA was so kind and generous and cool and just wonderful to allow me to take over a series of shows to continue that fundraiser. Is one of the reasons I really like working with these people. They're just really nice, cool people. And so we have now, at this point, after Truth Wanted and Talk Heathen, we are currently at $30,641.51 raised for Doctors Without Borders. So if you want to help us get even further, if you want to see if we can get up over 40,000 by the end of this stream, that'd be pretty tight. I don't know if it's going to happen, but it'd be pretty cool. So please just use that donate button. Really quickly, before we get started, a couple things that I had to say. Number one is that the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. Number two is that today, all of your donations on this video do not go to the Atheist Community of Austin. They go to Doctors Without Borders. Neither the ACA nor YouTube nor Google takes a cut of those donations. All the donations made here today goes straight to the organization. Doctors Without Borders is a global humanitarian organization that delivers emergency medical care to people affected by conflict, epidemics, disasters, and those who lack access to essential health care all around the world. They were founded back in 1971. Their teams work in over 70 countries, providing them with life-saving surgeries all the way down to just basic healthcare in some of the world's most challenging environments. They're driven by the principles of independence, neutrality, impartiality. They operate on the frontiers, offering aid solely based on needs, regardless of race, religion, political affiliation, nationality, or anything else. They save lives when that life-saving care is needed the most, in the most dangerous places in the world. They are the ones who run into the fire, run into the epidemic, run into the genocide, run into the bombs to save lives. And they are the real freaking heroes out here. I wish that I was half as cool as them, but I'm not. But what I can do is try to raise money for them. And you can help us help them help people live by smashing that donate button. While we've been starting the show, we've gotten $50 from Miranda Rensberger. Thank you so much. $10 from Rainbow Wolf. Thank you so much. Another $5 from an anonymous donor. Thank you so much. Down here, we got Jason Sherwood donating $13. Thank you so much. Philip Mitchell donating $50. Thank you so much. If you don't have a lot to give, that's okay. The vast majority of the donations made to get us up to over $30,000 now. The vast majority of donations have been between like $5 to $10. So if you want to just skip a coffee for a day to make sure that somebody gets to live on the other side of the world, that would be amazingly cool of you to do. And I encourage you to do so. Another thing before we get started, Dr. Ben, is the question of the week. We have our share your experience question from last week. We asked you if you want to get banned from leading Bible study, what Bible story would you pick? Here are our three favorites. Number 3 says, I love to get banned from Bible study for explaining how God's law demands that parents murder disobedient children. You know what, though? It depends on the age group that you're teaching that Bible study. If you're teaching little kids, maybe that's useful. Hey, Tommy, quit punching Billy in the arm. I will stone you, you know? Number 2, here's a Bible story that'll get you banned. Gather around, young Christians, for the story of Lot and how his daughters got him drunk and SA'd him. It's a bad time. Genesis 19, if I remember correctly. Total insanity. And then number 1, to get banned from leading Bible study, I would have said the story of Jesus saying that no father, even the worst one, would give their children snakes when they asked for food, and immediately follow it with a story cursing Israelites with snakes when they were asking for food. You know what, though? I didn't even know about that one. That's great. Fantastic answers this week. The prompt for this week, if you want to have your comments read next week, is tell me that you're religious without telling me that you're religious. Dr. Ben, do you have a way to tell somebody you're religious without actually telling them?
Yeah, and definitely the way to do this is to offer up thoughts and prayers instead of donating to Doctors Without Borders.
You know what, though? You know what, though? For real. Really quickly, before we get started, I just want to take 1 second here. I'm going to refresh the 3 donation streams we have. We have the donation directly below this video, and then we have the Tiltify, and then we also have merch sales. The merch sales are for Roll for Initiative, but 100% of those merch sales goes directly to Doctors Without Borders as well. So there's that $550 in merch sales. We got $11,421 on the Tiltify. Hero Forged, cool company that makes little figurines, donated an extra $1,000 for the last episode of the series that we did. And then we've got here on the fundraiser on the YouTube directly, we've got $17,799 as of this moment. And that brings us up to $30,774, thanks to the help of Peggy Clancy, who donated $50, and Patricia McGill, which donated $20. And as I was speaking, another onomatopoetic, another $50 there. So I'll add that to the total. And RC Blazer, another $10. I will add that to the total. So now we're up to $30,834 at this very moment, y'all. We're off to an amazing start. We're saving lives all around the world. We're debunking creationism and theism. It's a weird show. It's a weird show, and you're a part of it. Thank you so much for being here.
Incredible.
Are you ready to start jumping into some calls?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Sick. Are you hearing a really loud room noise hiss? Because I am.
A little bit.
Yeah, it's wild. It's gone now. It's gone. Okay, we're gonna go for. We've got a bunch of them. I think that we should go with Jack. Jack is a theist, pronouns he, him, calling in all the way from the frozen wastelands of Canada. Who wants to ask our opinion of the problem of evil. Jack, you are on the Atheist Experience with Ben and Forrest. How are you doing today?
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Forrest.
How are you?
I am good. You might remember me from my call last week on a different show.
I don't.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to bring up the same topic. Okay, I'm going to ask you.
I wouldn't know the difference.
The problem of evil first.
Yeah, I think it's a great argument for the fact that a God which is simultaneously all powerful, all knowing, and all good is logically impossible. There's the original phrasing by Epicurus from way back in the day. If God is all powerful and all knowing, then if God is able to stop evil but not willing, then he is malevolent. If he is willing but not able, then he is not omnipotent. He is impotent. If he is both able and willing, then there should be no evil. And if he is neither able nor willing, then we have no reason to call him a god. I would have a little bit more nuance to it than that, but I think that's a fine way to structure it. Ben, do you have a different opinion?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's the long and short of it. It's just that evil existing in the world, pain, suffering, rape, genocide, torture, murder. If God is able to stop it and doesn't, then he's not a good person. He's not a good God. So he can either be all knowing, all powerful, or all good. He cannot be all three.
All right, here's my rebuttal. Imagine if you have the power to stop somebody from smoking. You know it's going to kill them, but you still don't have the right, really, to stop them from smoking, whether or not it's bad for them. And it is. We both know it is. But you respect their right to smoke. Same thing with
Jack,
God and right.
Jack, here's the problem. Here's the problem that's different in your scenario versus the problem of evil. Because in your scenario, we are all independent people in a world that we cannot do anything about the laws of, right? Like, we can't do anything about the fact that smoking causes cancer and all these other things. However, in the problem of evil, God made the rules, right? So if God made the rules that certain things will condemn you to hell, or if that God made rules that not having food will kill you, or a lot of the animals out there could kill you, any of that, the things that cause suffering, God created the rules that those would cause suffering. So the difference here is, yeah, I would agree with you under your example that we can't really impact each other's responsibility in their own choices with smoking and all that stuff. But I didn't make those rules. I didn't cause the cigarette to cause cancer, but God did. So how do you reconcile that point? Like, if God could have made the rules different and made things not so that they would cause suffering, why would he choose then to cause suffering if he's powerful enough not to?
I have totally different line of questioning whenever you're done with them, Ben.
Yeah.
All right. Not going to try to preach because I don't have a pulpit. This is a show. But, I mean, from what I believe,
I appreciate that.
The Bible, it says that we live in a fallen world. And therefore,
but who
says we live in a fallen world?
But Jack, who created the world with the possibility to become a fallen world?
Yeah, God did that, but
could God have made a world where that wasn't possible?
Yeah, he could have, but it might have
Okay,
No,
so why didn't
process
he?
of free will.
So why didn't he?
So we could learn what evil is.
So he chose. So you're saying he chose not to. He chose to choose suffering. He chose suffering to teach us a lesson, or whatever you're getting to with that. So you're following into the trap there, right? Because we're saying he had the power to, but he chose not to. Would you say that it's a good thing for God to have chosen the thing that causes suffering?
If you don't mind me getting personal, when I was 20, I got very depressed because of a family member I lost. And it made me fail out of college, and I'm still finishing it to this day. Going through that made me, all that suffering made me understand just how important it is to take care of it in time.
Do you think that that's not a good answer? Because especially if we're taking all of suffering into consideration, that suffering is so minor compared to what the majority of the world is going through. Like when we're talking about Doctors Without Borders, the charity we're donating to today, we're talking about babies like being killed in violence. People even who aren't in violent areas, people who are starving to death on a daily basis. There are people who just don't have enough access to food. And sometimes, even if you have enough food, not having the right kinds of food can cause you to suffer. So like, and when I say suffer, like if you've ever seen pictures of people who have no access to protein and they're just eating off of rice and corn, you can be severely ill from that and die in infancy and young childhood. Do you think that, like, I don't think that's similar to the suffering you're talking about, like a minor inconvenience or like taking more time to get through school. It's not even close to the suffering we're seeing even younger people go through. Do you think that the God you're talking about, like, did a good thing by making that possible?
I mean, if you put it, let me explain. It's up to the people to make sure they get the right food, and if they don't,
is it? Hold on, Jack. Hold on.
Is it?
Hold on. Is it up to those babies to get the right food? Do you think like they can feed themselves?
10,000 children starve to death before they reach the age of 5 every day, Jack. How responsible are those babies?
It's not their fault. It's the fault of the people who don't feed them correctly.
Okay, 25,000 people, if you include adults, that's 25,000 total human beings that starve to death every single day. Do you think that they're all just lazy, stupid, didn't get a job, didn't earn some food? Or do you think there might be extenuating factors that put them in that situation?
Yeah, the people who aren't feeding them and cause them to die young and all that stuff, those people are the ones who have blood on their hands.
So are you thinking that poor people, are you suggesting that poor people are responsible for that? Like people, I don't know if you understand how many like irresponsible country leaders are out there that are not allowing their citizens to have the right amount of food. Or if you're living in an area that's not the right climate to grow food and you don't have any way to leave because you're poor. Do you think it's those people's fault?
The leaders, yeah, like Kim
okay, so
North Korea.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So if you're in if you live in North Korea and your baby dies of malnutrition, is that your fault?
No, and it's the leader's fault, and that, like I keep saying, they have blood on their hands, and they're gonna have.
Yeah, right. Okay, so is that? I agree. Is the fact that God allowed that to happen in this world, do you think that that's a good thing? Like, because God could have made that not happen, right? God could have said, "We're not going to allow this to happen on my planet." So why did he think that the suffering that suffering was okay?
That's what's so important. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, Ben, but like Jack, you just said it's the leader's fault. Who's in charge of everything in the universe? It's your God, right? So what Ben just asked is the most appropriate question here. Why did the leader not fix it?
The leader. Let me explain. When you are what if somebody is managing an aquarium and some of the fish decide to kill other fish? Is that the manager of the aquarium's fault? Even he does everything right, feeds them the right stuff.
So that's contradicting. That's even kind of contradicting what you had just argued for, because you just said the people being like the people who are suffering aren't the ones. Like, it's not always their fault. It can be the people who caused that suffering to happen to them. And what we're saying is God's at the top of all of that. And so you've got yourself in a bit of a trap here. You have to reconcile that piece for yourself. Like, you have said that God is capable enough to not allow it to happen, but chose not to. And so now you have to deal with that point. And just going back to, oh, well, free will, that's not sufficient to deal with that point.
And also, I want to point out the fact that, like, we were talking about people starving and the leadership of a country, and now you're pivoting again to something else about, oh, well, fish kill each other sometimes. Yeah, if the person who's in charge of that aquarium is all-knowing and all-powerful and knows exactly what the fish are going to do before they do it, and every thought that goes through those fish's head, and also can use any amount of magic to literally change the laws of reality surrounding those fish, yeah, then that aquarist, that miraculous, amazing, magical aquarist would be responsible. So that's the thing, dude. Like, if I see evil in the world, or you see evil in the world, and we can stop it and we don't, that makes us partially responsible. That puts it on us. Your God is the most capable thing in existence. It knows of every evil thing ever and has prior knowledge. It is all-knowing. It knows the evil millennia before the evil ever actually happens, and has all power to change it. Yes. Your God is ultimately responsible.
And what if he's letting it happen for a reason we can't understand?
Do you believe that God actually does have a plan?
Yeah, I do.
Do you believe that that plan is ultimately good?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that anything that happens to allow that plan to progress is, by definition, then, good? It's all part of the reason that you just mentioned.
I'm sure you've heard of Leibniz and his theodicy, and that's basically what I'm going to say.
Okay, so then there's no reason for you to sit here and defend these things like you have been. You should just be honest and say you think it is a good thing when children are raped. You think it's a good thing when people starve to death. You think it's a good thing when governments abuse their people. You think it's a good thing when natural disasters wipe out cities. You do, because that's part of God's plan.
No.
It's something that happened for a reason that you don't understand, but it's a good reason because it's part of God's good plan, and in the end, it's a good thing. That's what you just said, right?
No, not at all, because I didn't say it was good that children were getting raped. I said it would serve a different...
Is it part of the plan?
And
Is it part of the plan?
I wouldn't say it's part of the plan for children to be raped, no.
Okay, so then God's allowing things.
Yeah,
so then God's allowing things to happen that
are.
Yeah, so then things happen that are not. God isn't letting it happen. God doesn't want it to happen. These rapists are more powerful than God. They're doing things that God doesn't want to allow.
I've called the police on these types of people before, so no.
That's not what I asked.
At all.
That's not what I asked.
When you said I was...
These people are doing things that you now say are not part of God's plan, which is contradictory to what you said earlier, but whatever. If these things are not part of God's plan, then why doesn't God correct it and get back to his plan?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Why not?
Because I don't understand everything in the world, much as I'd like to.
Yeah, and so instead of looking into things and thinking about this. You've dug your heels in to give a religious answer to make yourself feel better about the fact that you can't give an answer about this. It's okay to say you don't know, but now you need to address that and not keep believing the same thing that you're believing. Something here logically does not work. You need to decide now what you're going to do with that. Are you just going to keep blindly accepting it, or are you going to address this and think, you know what, this doesn't make sense. Maybe I need to question some more. And so if you're willing to start questioning more, we can keep having this conversation. If you start digging your heels in now, I'm going to have some questions about why this isn't an issue for you.
Like, you either have a God that is wanting this rape to happen, or you have a God that isn't really that bothered by it. Which is it?
Yeah. All I can say is that God, I believe it, is indeed bothered by it.
Then why doesn't he do anything about it? Would you do something about it?
Oh yeah, definitely.
What kind of person would you be, Jack? Jack, what kind of person would you be if you knew about it and didn't do anything about it?
Hell is what he does about it.
Oh, okay. So just to understand, if you saw a child getting raped, you would intervene. But for God, God just says, all right, go ahead and finish. Have fun. I'll get you later. It's okay. Does that sound good to you?
You're giving me tough questions. I will not lie.
Yeah, I hope they're tough. I hope that they change your mind a little bit, because it sounds to me like this God is either weak or evil.
And the people you're describing are pretty evil.
Yeah, they sure are. Almost as evil as your God, who created those people with prior knowledge of the horrible things they were going to do, let them do those horrible things, and then send them to hell unless they repent and become Christians, and then they get to go to heaven anyway. And all the babies who were raped and died of malnutrition but didn't become Christians, they get to go to hell.
I will think about it. I know you have a show to run. Think about it on my own time, and I will not lie, I am having some trouble with my faith recently, and I will have to do this on my own. I know you have a show to run. I'd like to talk longer, but I have to do this on my own. I'm sorry. Goodbye.
Well, I hope you call back. I hope you call back and give us more questions and keep us updated on your journey, because I think that you are more moral than the God that you believe in, Jack. And I think that you deserve better than the belief that you've trapped yourself in.
Perhaps I will let you go. Goodbye.
All right. Take care, Jack. I had questions about cigarettes from the very beginning still.
Yeah.
I had a bunch. Yeah, so I want to tell you can't, you have to respect this person's right to smoke. You can't take it away. Dude, we ban harmful chemicals all the time. What are you talking about? That's a constant thing. And also we do ban smoking, like in buildings and stuff. You can't smoke on a plane, you can't smoke on a restaurant, because we know what secondhand smoke does. So like, why, what?
Yeah, there's so many ways to come at that call from so many different angles.
Yeah, it's rough, dude. It's real rough. I'm tallying up the new tallies, and it looks like the current numbers are there. That's not right. Hold on a second. We got $18,246 here on the YouTubes. We have the $1,000 donation match from Hero Forge. We have $11,000 and 421 from Tiltify, and we have $575 from merch sales. That brings us up to $31,242 raised for Doctors Without Borders. And as I was doing that, Brandy threw in another $20 God damn you. I just typed it in. So that's $31,261 raised for Doctors Without Borders. And David Haxor just threw in another 11 Canadian dollars while we were doing that call. We got a bunch more. I don't even know if I can scroll back from it. We got Joseph Fleming donating $20. We have somebody else that I can't scroll back to. We got an anonymous donation of $100. Like, you guys are fantastic. I would love to show the world that the atheist community is the ones who are going to step up and like try to fix things. You know what I mean? We don't just offer thoughts and prayers. We offer fucking money. We open our hearts and our wallets and we try to put in the work. We give after it hurts. We do what we have to do to make sure that our brothers and sisters and non-binary pals all around the world are protected and taken care of. That's what our community is all about. I love that shit. Good on all of you for being so cool and being so helpful today. Before we continue, I've got some announcements for you. As many of you know, we below in the chat, hold on a second. Oh, flip, dude. I am all out of place. I've got the announcement document here. This is my real job. I want to say thank you really quickly to the crew. That's a thing that I want to do. The crew who puts this show together every week, video operators, audio operators, note takers, call screeners, chat moderators, all sorts of cool people that do the amazing work of helping this show run. Look at all of them. They're awfully cool. I like them a lot. Also, after we're done with this fundraiser, be sure to check out the Brick fundraiser as well. We're doing the phase 2 of the Brick fundraiser. You can make a lasting impression on the atheist community of Austin. Buy a brick that'll sit forever at the ACA's Free Thought Library. Kim in Oregon apparently bought a brick that said, "I saw Forrest vomit on a boat." And that's true. I remember that. She was on my Galapagos tours, and oh man, I got violently ill on one of those weeks. So check that out after this fundraiser. Donate like crazy to this fundraiser, and then like later donate to that fundraiser too. But this one first. With that, we have 7. Holy crap, we have a lot of calls, dude.
Yeah.
We've got, do you have a preference on line number, Ben? Because I see a few that I want to do.
Yeah, there are quite a few. I think you pick one and we'll go from there.
Cool. Really quickly, we're going to take Max, pronouns he, him, calling all the way from Russia, who is an atheist who wants to support Doctors Without Borders, but can't donate directly and is wondering how he can help. Max, you're on AXP. Very briefly, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. What about you?
Never had a bad day, dude. Listen, if you can't donate, that's okay. Sharing is caring. If you want to help out, spreading the message, spreading the word, letting people know about this fundraiser. After the end of this show, the fundraiser is going to stay up for a little while. So if you can just tell people what we're doing and how cool Doctors Without Borders are and that they should donate, preferably using this link, because like I said at the beginning of the show, this fundraiser started with a project that I was working on. If I can see, like, if people donate using this link, I can see those donations, I can track them, and I get a number at the end of the day that I can then bring to brand sponsors and have them sponsor more charitable efforts in the future and do bigger fundraisers. So that's how you can help. Even if you can't donate, you can spread the message.
All right, thank you. So I should spread it just online everywhere I can?
Yeah. I honestly, any social media that you have going on, if you have a TikTok or a Facebook or a Twitter or a Instagram or whatever like that, if you have friends and family members that have $5 to spare, just give them the donation link and tell them to support this amazing freaking organization. Especially if you have people who are talking about the many.
My friends and family, they are also unable to donate. The weirdest thing is, less than a month ago, this organization, they said that they will no longer be operating in my country. It's
man,
a big coincidence.
That sucks.
That your fundraising happens right now after they declare.
Yeah. Honestly, even if you have if people close to you can't do it, that's okay. I don't ever want anybody to be putting themselves at risk in order to try to save somebody else. You got to fix your oxygen mask first, but surely you have a friend of a friend of a friend. If you talk about this, if you just post it, share it, then somebody's going to see it. That'll share it to somebody else. They'll share it to somebody else. And eventually it will make a difference. So every little action helps, no matter how small. And we appreciate you trying, man.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. My first time on Atheist Experience, and it's not about atheism or theism, weirdly enough.
Call us back another time for that. We'll see you soon, Max. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. What a nice dude. That's a very thoughtful question. We've got okay, sure. Mike, pronouns he, him, calling in from scandalous crawdads. That's so stupid. Atheists and theists are using the same logic but different premises, like in the problem of evil. Let's see how this connects to our last call. Mike, you are on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and Ben. How are you doing?
Hey, good. I feel bad about that last caller in Russia. They're going to give you a rough time a little bit from the get-go. He's in an atheist country, and they're not allowing doctors with borders. Did I hear that right?
I don't know.
There's situations with Doctors Without Borders can't go into every single country because they have to work a negotiation thing with the countries they go into, because they legally have to be present in the country. So if they can't get legal access to a place, of course they cannot provide services there. There's also I'm guessing there's some stuff going along with the war situation as well, contributing to that.
Yeah.
There are a few countries that are in some more violent situations where they're not able to extend into for a variety of reasons. So I feel like I know where you're going with this thing, but I have multiple problems with that particular line that you're going down. So how about let's just talk about what your main question is today.
I would also point out that to call Russia an atheist country doesn't really make a lot of sense. I just pulled up the 2022 report on international religious freedom from the U.S. State Department on Russia, that only 15% of the country reports having no religious faith. There's a reason why Russian Orthodox Church is a thing. So the government may be secular, but they're certainly not just an atheist country. I think that Norway is way more atheist than Russia, and certainly doesn't have nearly the problems.
Oh, I had a neighbor who grew up in Russia, and a required class, he was a civil engineer, he had atheism as a required class in college. I was like, oh, great.
Okay.
Maybe
I wouldn't know anything about that.
I was just bringing it up to give you a rough time. I did. Yeah, I did. All right.
Okay, what's your
I think we actually, my point was, I think atheists and theists have, I like how you reason and your logic, and I'll hear you go down a logic trail, and it makes a lot of sense. But I don't always agree on the premises that you have. We have different ones, and what do they call that? Smuggling in? When you're smuggling in something and you just start doing a logic trail, but you already established something. I'm not a big logic. That wasn't my major in college. But what I'm bringing up is atheists approach things that, no, God is evil or doesn't exist. And then theists approach it as, no, God is good. And then we just go from there. And then we, like the last call, you got, wow, this world is crappy and da-da-da. And well, if God's in charge, you guys are right. But God's crystal clear. He gave it to people. He calls Satan the prince of the world. He's not in charge of this world we're in. But he will be in heaven, but this isn't heaven. So I don't even knowing that God's not in charge.
So God's not directly overseeing the world. This isn't God's house and God's in control. God sent all his kids to daycare, and he knows the person who manages the daycare loves to kick children, but that's just what it's going to have to be, because eventually the kids will come home, but only the kids who are nice about it. And when the kids got kicked a bunch at the daycare and still wanted to come home and be worshipful and thankful, they're cool. The other ones get thrown in the meat grinder behind the daycare. What a weird thing that your God has set up here, dude. What an unnecessarily stupid and cruel system that your God has created.
Well, again, you're right with what you just said. The daycare analogy, you're absolutely right. Your premise is wrong. It's not a daycare. It's people deciding, do they want to live their life, or do they want God their creator, to be in charge of their life? That's all we're here is to make a decision, really.
But you just said that God isn't in charge of the world. Satan is.
He's the prince of the world, whatever that means. He has an influence, a strong influence.
If you had somebody, if you had children and you love your children, and there's this guy over here who you know likes to abuse children, would you put that person in charge of your children's lives in any capacity whatsoever?
Here we go again. What you're worried about, what you're concerned about, it's a good concern, is why are people suffering? The suffering is too much. Would you be happy if
I'm just asking about your God.
Suffering?
Asking about your God.
He hates this. He hates it when people sin. He hates it when people are bad to each other. The people that are torturing children and leading people astray are going to be worse off afterwards in hell than people who just like, nah, I don't want to follow God. But the point that really cause trouble.
But here's the problem, though, too. It's not
crystal clear as well.
No, but there's some other problems here, because it's very easy to sit back on the sins that we can all agree are bad. But we run into some other things, too, of apparently no matter what I do, I could never make it to heaven because I'm queer.
There you go.
So is that, like, am I just fucked? Like, I'm just destined for hell. Like, is that okay? Am I better off in hell?
Queer, like gay or
yeah. I am a bisexual trans man. Am I better off in hell?
Does it mean anything to you that being gay or queer didn't even make the top 10 commandments? Does that mean anything, like where it is as far as sin goes? It's not like the worst
so you're one of the people. So am I getting this right, that you don't believe that being gay is a sin? Are we on the same page there?
Gay is one of the many sins that you and I have committed. Yes.
So it is a sin. So you are saying it is a sin.
Probably.
Do all
if
that was my only if that was my only sin, would I go to hell for that?
Yep.
So basically, no matter what I do, even if I was completely perfect in every other way, that would say I am just destined. I'm destined for hell, and there's nothing I can do about it. Is that good?
Well, it depends on if you're trying to do God's will or not. If you're saying, "Hey, look, I really don't want to do this. I want to do it your way," and you're actually struggling with it instead of just like, "This is what I'm going to do," then that's.
I don't accept that for a minute. Okay. So,
I would love it, Mike.
If there was, so if there was a God, if I had a God, my God thinks that being straight is a sin. And if you're married, your marriage should be dissolved. You should just pretend like you never were straight. Don't even think those thoughts. Like, you need to repent from your heterosexuality. And if you choose to live that lifestyle of heterosexuality, then you're destined for hell, and there's nothing you can do about it. So you can either live my God's way, or you can do your own thing. Would that be a good thing to do if my God was the correct one?
Well, where you're going with this is, if you think you're born with it, if you have an urge from day one, then it must be good, and that's not true.
Did you have an urge? Hold on, Mike, are you straight? Are you straight? Are you heterosexual?
I don't think I should have to answer that.
Okay, yeah, I shouldn't have to answer about my sexuality either. So that's something personal, private to you, right? That's something that nobody should really have any business in. But even so, even if you don't feel comfortable talking about it, do you think straight people have sexual urges from day one of their life on this planet? Do you think that's realistic?
I mean, as an infant, that's actually another good question, is why are we teaching sexual things to, kindergartners, first, second, third grade even?
Okay, that's a whole separate thing, and we're not, and Mike, we're not doing that. Yeah, we're not doing that.
It would be so cool if you actually just addressed anything that Ben actually said to you, rather than just pivoting to something that's more comfortable for you to be grumpy about. Actually answer his questions, or we're gonna move on.
Go ahead, rapid fire me. Do it, rapid fire.
No, answer the question I just gave you.
Great. I don't know when sexual urges hit. Don't know. Go.
Okay.
I don't know.
So if that's the case, so you don't know enough even to talk about that, but the fact that you're saying that if it's something that you were told you were born this way and you're gay, like how does that make me any different than someone who was born straight, other than like my sexual preference? Why is that a sin for me? But like, can you imagine if you were told that you can't be your authentic self, you can't you can't be the you that you've always been? That's kind of shitty. If you like just knew that you couldn't fit in anywhere in society, you were going to be kicked out of your house, you were going to be told by your church, you're a sinner, all of those things. Why is it okay for people to do that to queer people?
Muslim now, right?
Christians,
this is what Christians do. This is what Christians do. This is what Christians do.
Not that I've heard of, not like Muslims. Unless you're talking Muslims, then I'm like, yeah. Right.
When's the last time you lived when's the last time you came out as queer to your family?
Well, I had a gay, I had a gay friend all through college, and we hung out.
Yeah, so you're talking about your gay friend. So you have n equals 1. One person. Don't even begin to tell me how queer people are not persecuted by the church in this country.
I'm saying they're not alone, and they're not alone in their sin.
They're not alone. They're not alone because it's not sinful.
Where I live, Mike, where I live here in Oklahoma, it is legal for a landlord to evict a tenant if they are gay. So like, it's not just your parents kicking you out of your house. I live in a place where you can be kicked out of your home by someone who isn't even your parent if they find out that you are not straight. It's ridiculous that you would say that this. Yeah,
I'm going to check on that.
Do it.
Seriously,
like you can be fired for it here in Oklahoma. Okay. I don't care if you don't believe it. Even if what I was saying isn't true, which it fucking is, but even if what I was saying wasn't true, it doesn't change the lived experience of people in their homes. What Ben was saying is a daily reality for kids who get kicked out of their homes, get sent to conversion therapy, get sent to pray the gay away camps and all sorts of things, who get discriminated against at school, get discriminated against at work, get discriminated against at public settings. This is a real live thing that happens all the time. And all Ben's trying to do is get you to grapple for 1 second with the reality of that situation and imagine how it would be for you. And it seems like you were more interested in dodging to other random things and blaming Muslims and trying to ask questions about law. Just for a second, put yourself in Ben's shoes. Imagine being a queer trans person and what it must be like to live in this society. Imagine what that feels like for a second, being told that because of this monster in the sky that I believe in, you deserve eternal torture and fire. Imagine what that feels like, dude.
May I answer that question?
That's why I asked it.
Answer the question.
Okay. First of all, that anybody kicking you out is wrong. Treating you different is wrong. I just consider being gay or
God,
the least of anybody's sins. Coveting is much worse.
Like God, who kicks you out of heaven and treats you differently if you're gay.
And stop dodging to other sins, because you said that this sin alone would be enough to send me to hell. So clearly it matters, and clearly you believe that queer people belong in hell. Do you not believe that?
Everybody belongs in hell. Again, I'll be clear on that. Everybody belongs in hell. Everybody has sinned.
Gross.
And you're saying that to make yourself sound better.
I don't even know what
you are saying that to make yourself sound better. But the statement is true. And it is a terrible, and you should feel bad. And you should feel bad about believing that. You believe that other humans belong in a place where they're going to be eternally tortured for something that just is their reality. Like, the fact that you can look at another human and say that that is okay, and that it's okay for your God to allow that to happen, like, it blows my mind that a human could look at another human and think those things. And I don't think that you necessarily believe that if you weren't. Maybe I'm speaking. I'm not trying to like speak on your behalf, but were you raised in the Christian faith?
Yes and no. I was raised Lutheran, and then we went to a Methodist church because that's where everybody went.
Okay, so yes.
And then by the time
So yes,
so if you
all of that is Christian, dude.
I think if you weren't raised in that, you might think differently. But it's really sad to know that, like, you're holding on to this because somebody told you, like multiple people told you in the past, that people that were different than you deserve to be tortured.
No, I discarded all that as a child. I became a Christian when I was in my 20s, and I didn't believe any of that. No, and they weren't teaching that.
Okay, so that's even worse, actually. So that's even worse. So you thought about it. So these people told you these things were true. You said, let me think about it for myself. Oh, actually, I do believe that people who are different than me should be tortured forever. So you made the conscious decision to keep that belief system. Okay.
Oof.
You've got an impossible scenario. You didn't commit one sin, so this is kind of nonsense. You're not going to hell because
it's a hypothetical to get you to
being gay. It was everything else.
But
don't worry,
it's just a hypothetical.
You keep going to those other things because you're afraid of what it means for you to agree with what we're saying. But that is what you are agreeing with. If you say that any sin sends you to hell and being queer is a sin, and that should send you to hell, that is what you are agreeing with. So stop dodging, stop going to these other points because you do agree with this. Now you have to accept, you either have to accept that point and accept that that's a really shitty thing that you believe in, or you have to change your mind on it. You have a choice here. And if we're going to go with the whole free will thing.
I mean, let's go back to the original premises. We're in God's house, his universe. It's not yours. It's not mine.
No, why did God think that people deserve to be punished for eternity for being gay?
It's not how he designed it. It's his rules. Go argue with God.
Yeah. So I mean, you're God's asshole.
Doing something God doesn't want you to do.
Did God create people?
Yes.
Does God create every person? Like it says in the Bible, I knew you in the womb and everything. Does God create every person?
I believe that to be true. Yes, that does have.
Okay, so then God made Ben to be gay and trans, and then is going to punish him for it. Is that what I'm hearing?
God made him with urges, just like I do. I have urges that, I envy people. I want stuff. Everybody's got these.
Are you either bisexual or transgender, sir?
No.
Okay, so then don't say this bullshit. Don't say this bullshit about how God gave you some urges too. That's a completely different thing. You said specifically that Ben's sexuality is what makes him worthy of hell. So your other urges don't qualify here. God made Ben to be bi and trans, and then said, if you go through with the way that I have created you on purpose, I am going to punish you for all eternity. That's what your God did. Also, does your God know all things?
For a woman, that's in the top 10, which you shouldn't do.
Does your God know all things? Does your God know all things?
Pardon?
Does your God know all things, past, present, and future? Okay, so then God made Ben knowing who he was going to be, knowing who he was going to love, knowing what was going to happen ahead of time. And so God made Ben specifically so that he could send him to hell. And everybody else who goes to hell, God made them to go to hell.
I want to keep
it doesn't matter what their choices are. It doesn't matter what the choice is. If I TiVo a football game and I now have a recording of the entire game and I know who's going to win and I know every pass and every play, those players had free choice, but I know the whole thing. So if I say I'm going to punish the losing team, it doesn't matter if they had free choice. I already knew the outcome. So if God already knows the outcome and he made people on purpose, he made them in order to send them to hell. That is the end goal. Why would a God do that?
Because you're actually twisting it a little bit. Just because God knows the outcome doesn't mean he's affecting your free will. Those are two different things, and that's hard to grasp.
I didn't say he was. I didn't say he was. I didn't say he was. We could have all the free will in the world. If God knows how we are going to exhibit that free will before we are even born, and he allows us to be born in the circumstances that enact the decisions that we're going to make anyway, if he knows the outcome of the game, it doesn't matter how much free will we have. If he knows the ending, then he is deliberately making people in order for them to go to hell. And he has all the power in the world to change it, and he doesn't.
Affect your free will. He happens to know what you're going to do, but he's not affecting it. You're making the choice to follow your urges or to follow God. And I'm doing the same thing, and so are you, Forrest.
And that football team had the choice to play better and win, and they didn't do it. And that means it's okay for me to punish them, right?
Well, if they lose, they lose. You make your choices, and then you stand on your choices. God happens to know the answer, and it drives us bonkers, but he's not affecting.
So those kids,
as far as
those kids that were those kids in the last call that chose to be born into a North Korean family, what they could have just not followed their urges and been born into a rich American family.
You don't get to choose where you're born. That's nonsense. Why did you say that?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things we don't get to choose, even with free will. There's a lot of things we don't get to choose, right?
You get to choose your life decisions, whether you want to follow God or follow yourself. That's it. And the rest is, and there's a lot of struggle. And
so if God created a situation, where you just being yourself was bad, do you think he would be a good or a bad person to assign those rules and then make somebody so that the things that they were bad?
I know what you're saying. I love ice cream, and the more I eat, the sicker I get and the fatter I get. That sucks. And all this health food, I don't really.
That is not the same thing. That is not the same thing.
Not the same thing at all.
It's not the same thing at all. No.
It sounds like you have been so convinced by terrible analogies that you think that we will also be convinced by terrible analogies, and I promise we won't. We've been doing this shit for a long time, and it sucks that you can stare morality in the face and then make some bullshit analogy or dodge to some other thing so you can say, actually, no, it's different sometimes, because when somebody's in charge, it doesn't actually matter what they do. It's good because they're in charge. This might equals right bullshit. It's really fucking gross, Mike.
No. That is the reason I called was if you got somebody who makes, the potter makes the pot. He gets to decide if that pot's going to pee in it or food or whatever. The pot doesn't get to decide. God created us. He gets to decide.
And that's shitty. And that actually, that analogy goes exactly with what we were saying. That is, precisely. And that passage says exactly that there are some people that were created by God to be tortured. Mm-hmm. You think that that's a good thing. And you think that that is a good thing. The difference here is that we don't think that's a good thing. We do not accept that.
They're not. And we think that. I don't think it's a good thing. And you guys are doing Doctors Without Borders. Obviously, you don't either.
So is your God? So it sounds like your God is capable of doing things that are not good. Then
he's capable of letting us get into a lot of trouble and a lot of pain, and some of it's our fault, and some of it isn't. And in heaven, you just said, hold on. But you just said that he's capable. He's the potter. He's capable of creating the pot to be used for any number of purposes. Right? You did say that. Do you believe that? That is true.
So God made if there had to be a pot for someone to pee in, God would have had to make that pot, right?
Yeah, I mean, some people have urges to be gay, and some people have urges to.
Okay, so hold on. Some
people have urges to be peed on, like a pot.
Yeah, so God makes scenarios and makes circumstances that are not good.
Well, he makes scenarios where it's a struggle.
He makes evil. He said so himself. He said he creates evil. So he makes the scenarios that aren't good for people to suffer in.
Yep.
No, Forrest. Forrest, you quoted Isaiah, was it 45:7? And it says God created evil, and the correct interpretation, or the one that people believe is true, some of them say evil, but he creates calamities. And calamities are struggles again. We're back to that. But he doesn't create evil. You can't even.
I form the light and create darkness. I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I'm the Lord, do all these things. So evil is the word that's in the text, not calamity.
Of the interpretations on that, and they say calamity. Yeah,
but even if, God damn, dude, even if you want to say that particular passage of scripture isn't right, we can go right back to what we talked about in the other call. At the end of the day, God is all powerful and all knowing. He is in control of everything and supposedly has a plan. And no matter what happens, everything somehow or another is leading towards his plan. So at the end of the day, even the evil things are part of God's plan. There is intention.
Well, he turns. That's not quite right either. He turns evil things and he can make them good. But we're out creating mischief and evil.
So
just doing what God wouldn't.
How do you turn?
Is the loss of life of a baby in North Korea who starved to death? Is the lesson that somebody learned from that worth the cost of that baby's life?
I have no idea, but I know the fact that we're talking about it could change your life for the better. That's all, and that's pretty.
I don't think that I would ever agree with. I wouldn't even question like this particular piece. Like I think that no matter how you spin it, like that baby dying is bad. Like that is a bad thing, and that the lesson that it doesn't matter what lesson you learn from that, human life should not have been the cost of that lesson. Like no lesson is worth that.
It's only bad from a Christian point of view, or atheist point of view. From an atheist point of view, baby dying, it's evolution. Tough nuts. I mean,
not at all.
You can say
0%. So it goes to show that, like, Mike, you don't appear to have ever actually talked to anyone who disagrees with you in a serious way. Because for you to sit here and say that, number one, all atheists believe in evolution, that's not right. Number two, I'm a fucking biologist. I could tell you quite a bit about evolution. No, I study evolution for a living. I don't see dead babies as just, fuck it, it's collateral damage, it's evolution. I don't see things that way at all. You are inventing a shitty worldview to propose on us in order to try to accommodate your shitty worldview, which is that the best, most moral thing in the universe, the being that is defined as love incarnate, is totally cool with those babies dying because it's for a better purpose that they like. It's this big part of this message. It's to teach a lesson. It's part of the plan. It's whatever. Maybe that baby wasn't a good enough Christian. Who knows? And then those babies that die all over the world, they weren't actually in a Christian country. They never learned about Jesus, so they get to go to hell. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Dahmer and Hitler, they repent on their last day. They get to go to the theme park in the sky with God.
You're entertaining, but I said none of that, nor would I ever agree to that. No.
Right, but doesn't it suck for me to sit here and bullshit straw man your opinion? Wouldn't it be nicer if I actually grappled with what you specifically were saying and not what other callers or what other random people have said? Because I've gotten calls that have said all those things, but you sure didn't. So wouldn't it be cool if I grappled with your opinions rather than putting words in your mouth?
Do you have a question for me, or what are we doing here?
Yeah, the question is, why the fuck would you sit here and say that us atheists don't care about dead babies because that's just evolution, rather than actually grappling with the things that we are talking to you about?
Well, it's a side issue, and I don't expect you to answer it because your names are out there in public, and that'd be very uncool, and you're doing Doctors Without Borders, which is very cool. So, but that's like the Thanos problem that atheists have, which is half the people disappeared, hey, more resources for the other half. That's a problem with being an atheist. That's why you have bad PR.
No, it's absolutely not. No, because not our goal as secular humanists is to make the world better, so fewer bad things happen to people. We acknowledge that bad things happen. We don't accept that there was a God having a better plan with relation to it. We know that bad things happen. We're doing the best that we can to make fewer bad things happen, and that doesn't take away from the fact that these things are very, very horrible. And along with that, evolution is on a population level and not on an individual level. So just had to throw that point in too.
It's just
you're
stupid.
getting a lot of things wrong here.
It's a ridiculous straw man of evolution and of atheism. And just to be clear, there is no Thanos problem. Thanos was wrong. Killing 50% of the population is a wrong thing to do. As an atheist, I wouldn't want that to happen. There's no amount of resource partitioning that would make me want that to happen. Once again, see, this is what's so fucking frustrating about you, Mike, is that you just made a bullshit straw man of atheism saying that we're cool with babies dying. And then when I confront you about it, you say, well, you'd be cool with 50% of the whole human race dying. No, we fucking wouldn't. You have yet to actually grapple with anything that Ben or I have said. You just keep dodging and pivoting to some other fucking thing or putting some weird ass accusation on atheism. It would be amazing if you could actually own up to your own beliefs instead of just trying to attack ours or pivot to something more comfortable for you.
No, those are side issues. You're right. But I think they're true. But
no, we're on it now. It's not fucking true. You have two atheists sitting here telling you that that is not at all how our worldview works. Now the ball's in your court. Do you still think that we think that dead babies are a good thing because evolution? Or are you going to listen to the people who are telling you with our own mouths that that isn't what we believe?
I don't think it's a good thing, except for the part where the less people there are, the more resources you have. If you want to be a real,
we didn't ask what you think.
atheist.
We didn't ask. We asked if you were going to stop putting words in our mouths, and if you have a question about our position, ask us. And along with that, not all atheists have the same position on everything. So you need to ask us what we believe before you tell us what we think is okay and what isn't. Because we'll tell you our position. And in fact, we have been telling you this whole time, and you're just not listening to it.
I believe you. I mean, I'm saying it's a problem of atheists, of the atheist thought, which is people are.
And again, there's not the atheist thought. There is no the atheist thought.
Yes.
There are individual people with individual perspectives.
Ben.
Yeah, we're all individuals with individual perspectives. There is one thing that links us, and that we are not convinced in a higher power. And that's it. But we disagree. There's so many atheists that disagree on everything else from that point. But we just do not accept that claim.
The same way that just a minute ago, I recited several Christian claims that I have received on this show, and you took umbrage with it, saying, I didn't say all those things. Why are you saying those things about me? Yeah, you could do that about anybody. Ben and I are sitting here telling you what we believe and asking you why you believe something. And all you keep doing is pivoting to other bullshit talking points and telling us what you think we believe, which is distinctly different than what we have been telling you we believe this whole time. It's immensely dishonest, dude.
Well, I mean, okay, now you just twisted a little bit. I went too far. You can't discuss the Thanos problem or anything. You can't. It's just
there is no Thanos problem.
We said we don't accept the argument you're saying we support. We don't accept your premises.
Well, here's the deal. Doctors Without Borders is a great organization, and it's great you're supporting.
Agreed.
You're switching again to other things. Stick with one fucking point, Mike. It's funny because we will debunk something that you've said, and then you'll get angry and switch to something else, and then just keep going around in circles with these different things because you don't want to address what we're actually talking about.
Well, okay, let's talk. What do you want to talk about? I'm not angry.
We have been, and you haven't been listening. So I feel like this is kind of a waste of time, Mike.
I'll give you one more that we can talk about. Why is your God okay with the evil and suffering in the world? Why is it okay for him and he doesn't intervene to stop it?
Okay, there are a couple premises in there. He's not okay with it, and it breaks his heart. And he's letting us do free will for the time being.
If someone was hurting your children and breaking your heart, would you put a stop to it? Or would you just watch it happen and just be heartbroken?
Apparently, God's not going to step in, although it seems to. Sometimes I don't know. I don't want to get into stuff you can't prove, but he's staying out of as much as possible so we have free will as much as possible. And then when it's over, then in heaven, it's there's not going to be dead babies and people torturing each other.
Okay, so then the free will of the rapists, murderers, and pedophiles of this world is more important to God than protecting his children.
He's looking long game. I mean, that sounds tough, but I mean, you're just like, hey,
so if
7 years, you're out. God's looking at it forever. You got a different.
Once again, if you saw someone abusing a child, would you step in and stop them, Mike? Or would you say, long game, this guy's going to hell anyway, it's cool?
All right. You did the premise thing again. God has different rules than we do, and he does, because he's the creator.
Your God is either weak or evil, Mike. Anybody who would see a world like this and not try to fix it and just say, well, at the end of the day, it's going to work out in my favor anyway, is a monster. And I think you're better than this God. You just can't fucking face it. So we're going to move on. It's been 34 minutes. It's been extremely frustrating. Yeah. Ben, you have one thing at the end here?
Yeah, just one last point. I just want to say for both this caller and the previous one about the problem of evil that, like, I love that we see people wanting to keep humans so accountable for the things that we do, but none of you are holding your God accountable.
Absolutely. Well, because it's different, Ben. Don't you understand? God can do whatever he wants because he's God. And that means that anything he does is moral. And that means that when he watches rapists and murderers and all these things and does nothing about it, it's actually cool that that guy does it because it's special. It's almost as if we're doing some sort of pleading that's special. You could call it like special pleading. I don't know. Mike, you're better than your God. Think about it. Call us back. Goodbye. What an immensely frustrating call.
Yeah.
Wow. Just deeply, deeply gross. But it's cool because, I mean, what can we say? We like it when babies die because evolution, you know?
Yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad for those things to happen, but it's worse for you to like somebody of the same gender.
Yeah, well, it's because all sins are the same, you know?
Yep.
So, like, you know, when he has this 10 commandments list, which Mike made sure to mention several times, but it doesn't matter because all sins are the same and everybody deserves hell. And so, like, who fucking cares anyway, you know? The cool news about that ridiculously, absurdly annoying call is that through it all, we've raised over $31,670 for Doctors Without Borders. What a fucking cool day we're having here. Arguing with people and making money for Doctors Without Borders so that they can save people's lives. I actually can't scroll back far enough because there was a lot of chat in that call. The chat was really frustrated with Mike, but I can't scroll back enough to shout anybody out. But if you donated during that call, thank you very much. You're awesome. If we get up to 32,000, I'll sing you a little song. How about that? We'll see what else. I'll sing a little song for you. We have several other calls in line. Ben, do you have the call screen open?
I do.
Are you at all interested in 13 or 18 up there at the top?
Yeah, I'm interested in both. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. We've got let's do number 18. I like the phrasing of 18. We've got Kelvin, pronouns he, him, calling in from Floppy Lobsters. Wants to know, does transgenderism, I fucking hate that word, perpetuate stereotypes? This can go one of two ways.
What you got, Kelvin?
You're on the line with Ben and Forrest. How are you doing?
Let me start off by saying totally my bad for that phrasing. Really, I could have done better. That's on me.
I appreciate that sincerely.
Yeah.
Because it does make it sound like a religion, and I hate it. So thank you very much for that.
I hadn't thought of that, and you're completely right on that. So I'm sorry. I didn't mean to come off that way.
That's totally cool. So what's going on? What's your question?
So I decided to call in, first time calling, because I saw specifically the two of you who I know. Dr. Ben, this is potentially part of your lived experiences. And Forrest, you are very well educated on this topic. And I guess my question is, let me try and rephrase it, if you'll allow me.
Yeah, sure.
So does the existence of transgender people and the mindsets transgender people may have kind of go against a lot of societal push towards deconstructing gendered norms?
No.
Not at
And
all.
I can go into this in a lot of depth because, in fact, it goes the opposite. Because the trans community, it is not about adopting femininity or masculinity. It is about like being your true authentic self, whatever that is. And you can be a trans woman and be very masculine presenting and still be a trans woman. You can be a trans man and be very masculine presenting and still be a trans man. You can be a cis man and have be more gender nonconforming and consider yourself to be a femboy. I am friends with people who identify as femboys, who just throw those stereotypes out the window. In fact, a lot of the trans community kind of leans into more gender abolitionism, to where gender is more of your own thing for your own self. And the words that we use around that are for you to communicate with other people. So it would take a lot longer for me to describe every single thing that I am, or explain my whole experience to somebody. But if I say I'm a trans man, they can more easily understand where I come from and, how I want to fit into this society. So I firmly, I reject the idea that the trans community or trans identities perpetuate stereotypes.
Yeah, I think it's really important to point out that, sex and gender are different things. Looking at gender just by the nature of what it is a vast spectrum. But even gender can be broken down further into gender identity and gender expression. Gender identity being your internal sense and feeling of what your gender is and what it means to be man, woman, non-binary, whatever. And then the presentation, the expression that you put out to the world. Both of those things are also deeply spectral. I would argue it's some infinities are bigger than other infinities, and I feel like those are the bigger infinities of this kind of spectrum. And so I'm a cis man. I couldn't tell you what the fuck masculinity means or what it means to me versus somebody else. I can tell you there are certain things that I do that make me feel more manly or masculine, but it's certainly not something that I hang my hat on or hinge any real part of my word. I don't want to say identity, because I guess identity does form into it's certainly not as big of a deal to me as it is to other men who it's a very big, there's a reason they don't paint their nails and there's a reason they're not going to drink tea and there's all this stuff. And meanwhile, I'm over here just really, it would be very difficult for me to give less of a shit. I really don't. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. I think that with trans people, I'm just seeing my different friends expressing themselves in different ways. And I'm happy to see the same diversity amongst my trans friends as I see amongst my cis friends, because I have plenty of friends who are men and women that express that in different ways and articulate their feelings about that in different ways. And I don't see any real difference in the diversity of those expressions and articulations among them than I do amongst trans people or among myself. It's just, everybody's kind of got their own thing going on. And I think trans people are a great exemplar of that.
Okay. Am I still on? I had a phone call earlier and I think I might have killed my audio.
Yeah, you're still on. I have another point to get to, but I want you to be able to respond to that first.
No, please. I'll address what I want to ask already.
Yeah.
Okay.
So something else too, there is an interesting dichotomy in performance of gender, and it's not because trans people are encouraging that. It's because trans people have to fit into a society that demands certain gender performance in order to be treated in the way that they want to. So you may see some trans people that have to present as hyper feminine or hyper masculine in certain circumstances in order to be treated with dignity and respect, which is unfortunate that that's the case. But if you are a passing trans person, you're way more likely to be given the pronouns that you normally use, more likely to be called by your correct name and all of that. So there's a societal pressure put onto trans people. Not that trans people want to perpetuate those stereotypes, but it's because society demands those stereotypes be performed in order to be treated like that gender. So I think that might be where there's some confusion.
I think it's also important to point out that, like, because gender is a social construct, like the stereotypes, so to speak, are like, I just to build off what you're saying, Ben, because you already touched on this a little bit, but like, just that's something that you are walking into. It's not you're perpetuating it, you are living amongst it. And so it would make sense that the gender specific experiences you have, the gender specific relationships that you have, the gender specific things you see in media, on television, and books, whatever like that, would then influence you to want to also express yourselves in those ways. And so, like, definitely, like, when I was a kid, looking at men on TV, looking at men in movies, reading about men in books, like, those things influence the kind of man I wanted to be, as much as they influence just the kind of person I wanted to be. And so, like, it's not that, like, I'm perpetuating stereotype by my behaviors as a cis man. It's that these stereotypes were given to me, and I was then, influenced by them the exact same way that 400 or 500 years ago, men were influenced into the gender behaviors of weeping with emotion and fainting when you're overwhelmed, and wearing a powdered wig and makeup and high heels and like all these other very manly things in the 1400s that certainly are not manly today. Kelvin, did we lose you? Going once.
Sorry,
going twice.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Yep.
Hello. Sorry, phone fell asleep.
That's okay.
I was just saying that. So what this boils down to, from what I'm hearing, is that for a lot of people, since it's not set in stone what it is to be masculine or what it is to be feminine, is that it does, at least to an extent, rely on what certain people's views are and what classifies a person within a certain subset of gendered characteristics.
Well, it's very cultural, and there is a combination of like the way you innately want to express yourself in combination with how you were raised to be, kind of how Forrest is talking. But I think a lot of times the way we talk about gender is a bit misleading, because, like, we were talking about gender expression and gender identity, so gender identity is more of your psychological sense of self. Well, like, when we talk about gender as a societal construct, a lot of people will say that you don't really have a gender, but you're doing a gender, like you're doing gender in your society, because essentially it's how you interact with the people around you and with the culture around you based on whatever gender means in that society. So
gender performance is what we call it in anthropology.
Yeah. So it's like you can have your identity, but you may do gender differently depending on how you want to have those interactions. And so even if non-binary people have an interesting experience with this, because in a lot of cultures, there isn't a way for them to authentically express and it's very hard to perform or do non-binary gender, because there's such a spectrum, an infinite array of ways that you can be non-binary in a society. And so people often have to sacrifice certain things in order to get the better of the options. So they might not choose to put X on their passport, or they might not choose to use mix instead of Mr. or Miss. They might choose something that's gendered because it's easier to perform that in society and easier to just not have to argue with people on that every single time. And so you can have some ways that you're incoherent with your identity and with your gender performance. But that's not to say that gender is this thing that you have to do one way every single time. But if you want to be treated a certain way in certain societies, you kind of have to go along with the cultural expectation, unless you want to continually fight that battle every day with them. So it's a very complicated, gender is very complex. And I'd love to get into the meat on this more, but it could take so long. Like there are people who just like do their PhDs in this topic, and it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, I went and pulled out my. This is one of my grad school anthrop textbooks. This is from the cultural anthropology section because I studied all of it just to kind of get a background. And I'm not going to read this whole paragraph because it is quite lengthy, but just kind of jumping in at the end here. Understanding cultural identity is something that people perform, compels anthropologists to think of individuals as agents who have mastered and are capable of executing a range of skills appropriate for the public display of particular identities before particular audiences. Thus, displays of gender identity are examples of gender performativity. That is, gender is something that is reconceived as something that we perform or enact, something that we do, not something that we are. Put otherwise, no single identity fully captures the inner life of any individual. From the perspective of performativity, culture can be reconceived less as a set of imposed beliefs and behaviors and more of a set of resources, artifacts, actions, and interpretations that can be deployed by individuals in order to enact before others, others the identities which they lay claim. And it goes on and on about this, and it equates this not only to gender but also to other things like, you know, race and religion and blah blah blah. But yeah, just basically we lead gendered lives, we live in a gendered world, we develop gendered brains, we engendered responses and gender to gendered stimuli. It's all just part of the fun of being a human. There's no like raw body form or brain form or mind form that's like uninfluenced from these things that we can look to as like this perfect unmutilated model of a human being that hasn't been fucked up by society yet. You know what I mean? We don't have that kind of standard. It's just people living in the world, man.
Yep.
With that, I think we're going to move on, Kelvin, but I really appreciate your call. His phone might have fallen asleep again, but I appreciate you, Kelvin. Have an awesome rest of your day. I hope you call in again sometime if you have any more questions. That was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was a good, productive call. I love those. I'm going to go and refresh these pages once again and total everything up again. We've got $575 here. We've got $1,000 there. Here on the Tiltify, we've got $11,446 there. And here on the AXP fundraiser stream, we've got, oh shit, there we go. We've got $18,826. And that brings us up to $31,847 raised so far for Doctors Without Borders. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating, for helping out, for hanging out, for helping us make the world a slightly less shitty place. Ben, like, we're coming right up on the time this show's about to end, supposed to end. But, like, we have 9 calls left in the queue. We're not going to be able to get to all of them. But, like, do you want to do 1 or 2 more? Like, are you down to stay late?
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down to stay a bit longer. Let's go. We're having fun.
Yeah, dude. I am interested in a couple of these. I want to go over to Vic, pronouns he, him, calling in from Texas, who says that the Bible is a good instruction manual. Now, the call screen here doesn't know if Vic is a theist or an atheist. It's not listed. So, Vic, first of all, hi. You're on the Atheist Experience with Ben and Forrest. How are you doing today?
How are you doing now?
Hello.
Doing good.
Can we ask you to start out with, you say the Bible is a good instruction manual. Do you believe that the Bible is true or that the God in the Bible is real?
Yeah, I believe in a creator.
Okay, so you're a theist then.
The first thing I want to say, is I don't believe in the New Testament or Jesus Christ. You know, I feel like that's just a Roman made up fairy tale.
Okay. So the Old Testament God then do you believe that the Old Testament is true, or like that the God of that book is a good thing that you should believe in, or do you believe in just like a general creator and the Old Testament is just something that kind of stands alone as a fairy tale with good instructions in it?
Well, I just believe that it's just a book of laws. Book of commandments.
I can agree that it's a book with some laws in it, but you said it's a good one. And I wonder what you mean by good. Do you mean it's effective, or do you mean that it's morally good?
It's morally good, if you could tell.
Okay.
It's the whole thing morally good.
My bad. Let me just turn this off. There we go. Yeah,
is
so
is
then-
all of it
I mean,
morally
there's
good?
plenty of laws. If you, well, I would say morally good. Yes, there's
Is
all
it?
of it.
All of the laws are morally good in your perspective.
Yeah, because I believe there's only 10 commandments, right?
There's
No.
more laws in the Old Testament. Because I was just going to ask you if you thought it was
Yeah,
morally good to stone children for disobeying.
Also, there's like 3 different versions of the 10 Commandments alone. That story is repeated a couple of times, and the commandments are a little bit different every time. So, like, even that, no, but there's plenty more commandments than just the 10.
yeah, there's plenty more. There's
Yeah, so-
commandments for marriage,
Are all of those good?
commandments
Are all of those good?
crime. Yeah, they're all good.
Yeah. So
Okay,
again,
so-
is it good? Is it morally good to stone your child if they disobey?
No, it's not good. You'll get punished.
but that is a commandment in the Bible.
But there are punishments as well. If you're talking about stoning children, that's not good at all.
Yeah. So you
Commandments.
don't think that all of them are good. So then why should we accept this as a good instruction manual if there are things in it that are not good?
No. I ain't said they're not all good. I said they're all good morally. Because I mean, we all
Right,
keep the commandments if you believe.
So, but Vic, even just the 10 Commandments, I disagree with you that even just the 10 Commandments are all good. Most, like a lot of the commandments are not good. Some of them are, but then there's a bunch of other parts of the Bible, even just in the Old Testament, that are very obviously not good. The Bible has commandments on how to own slaves. I think we can agree that that's not good, right?
Well, on servants, yeah. That's what it says,
No,
right?
it says slaves. It says slaves that you can take from the heathens around you. It says that you can beat them. It says that you can pass them down to your children as property. So not servants, no, slaves.
Beat them.
And God commands this in the Old Testament.
Yeah, I know. There are commandments of that too. How to own. They say, what's it called? Not slaves, but servants. But
Nope, it's slaves.
Slaves.
The word is slaves.
But I mean,
So-
technically, are we slaves to this day? Why aren't we working for our bosses? Don't we
This is
No,
not the
Vic.
same thing. No. The Bible gives us instructions on how to beat our slaves properly.
Vic, when was the last time that your boss beat you and passed you down to their children as property?
Can you give me a verse that says that we can beat them?
Happily. Give me 2 seconds. Exodus 21. Let's see here. I'm trying to, no, don't give me this one thing. How dare you? There we go. Let's see here. So Exodus 21 details quite a bit. It starts out with different parts about Hebrew slaves. Then it talks about this. Let me go ahead and just search for this word. There we go. Anyone who beats a female or male slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result. They are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. That is Exodus 21, verse 20. It says that if you beat a slave to death, then that's a problem. But if the slave recovers if the slave doesn't die within the first 2 days, then they're okay. Because, direct quote, since the slave is their property. You want to do another one? Because there's more.
Servant. I don't know. You're
Okay, let's change the word to
You
servant.
give me more,
When
but
is
I
the
mean-
last time? No, happily. Let's change the word to servant. Do you think, or let me just say, what would you call a servant that you are allowed to beat until they almost die and pass down to your children as property?
You still talking about Exodus 21, chapter
Yep.
verse 20?
Yep.
Well,
That was part of it. I can find the other part in Exodus where it talks about passing slaves down to your children. I believe that's in Leviticus, if I remember correctly. Let me double check.
Yeah, but there's also laws about having a servant. You also got to feed him, and you also got to provide him a home.
So is it
Here we
okay?
go. Your males.
Yeah, so Vic.
Here
so
we
Vic,
are. This is
along,
Leviticus. Yeah. I'm so sorry, Ben. Leviticus 25, verse 44 through 46. Your male and female slaves may come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you as members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. That's from the Bible, Leviticus 25, 44 through 46. You may take these people as slaves, pass them down to your children as property, and own them for life. If you want to say that the Bible actually says servant, fine. What do you call a servant that you can pass down as property, beat, and own for life? I call that a slave.
But you just read Exodus 21.
No, I read Leviticus 25.
And if a man his servant, if a man hits a servant, you're going to be what? You surely going to be punished.
If you kill them by beating them.
Read the rest of the verse.
Also, I also just read for you Leviticus 25, which says that you can pass them down as property and own them for life. That's slavery, Vic.
Just like in the industrial time, they used to beat up people too. I mean, shoot.
Was that okay? Vic, was that okay? Are you saying that was okay?
It wasn't okay. That's why there's laws about it.
Okay, so it wasn't okay then. Right. Why is it okay if the Bible says you can do it?
It doesn't say that you could hit your servant. It's telling you not to.
No, it does. It
That's
says
not what
you
it
can
says.
Read the verse, the whole verse again. Read it out loud for us right now, if you have it in front of you.
I mean, the one he just showed me right now, if a man smite his servant or his maid with a rod and he die under his hand, he shall be surely punished.
And keep going.
I mean, back in the day, it was
keep going.
Keep going.
No,
Vic,
keep
read
going.
the rest of the verse. Keep going. Keep going.
Black people, they used to treat.
Vic, read the rest of the verse.
Notwithstanding, if he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished, for he is his money.
Right. Yes. So do you know what that means? So tell us what all that meant.
If he continue a day or two, he shall not be punished.
Yeah. So if you hit your slave and they don't die, but they keep working, then you shall not be punished because they're your property. That is what it says.
Oh, yeah. This man strive and hurt a woman with child.
And then it goes on to the next part. So what you just read, Vic, is that it's okay to beat them as long as they don't die within a day or two. So it doesn't say don't beat them. It says don't beat them to death. That's what it says. Or at least don't beat them to death immediately. Mm-hmm. That's slavery, Vic. Yep. So the Bible condones slavery.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. The Bible condones slavery, and it says in that part, it says God is actually the one giving those commandments. So you say the book is a good instruction manual. It's an instruction manual for slavery.
It is.
Does that make it good?
Yeah, but it's also talking about the nation of Israel.
Does that matter, Vic?
It falls on there for every human being.
No, hold on a second. Does that matter? Mm-hmm. Is there any context at all ever where slavery is okay?
I mean, slavery is not okay at all.
Right. So it doesn't matter that they're talking about Israel or they're talking about non-Hebrew, because they have different rules in Exodus there. They have different rules for Hebrew slaves and non-Hebrew slaves. So it doesn't matter which slaves we're talking about. It doesn't matter how long they keep the slaves. It doesn't matter about any of it. Slavery is wrong all the time. And all the time, slavery is wrong. Your Bible condones slavery and tells you how to do it properly. It says this is how you should own slaves. Your Bible is an instruction manual for slavery. That's wrong.
Jeez. Sorry about that. I'm just reading right here.
You should have read it beforehand, but it's good that you're doing it now. Vic, I hope you read the whole damn thing, because I think the best way to become an atheist is to read that book. It'll disillusion you of this God, and it'll disabuse you of the notion that anything that book has to offer is actually worth your time. There are some good things in that book. There's good passages about leaving parts of your crops unharvested so that homeless people can take free food. There's parts of that book about loving your neighbor and your enemy. Yeah. There's really good things in there, but there's not a single thing in that book that you cannot get without all the horrible baggage of rape, murder, genocide, and slavery that comes along with the rest of that book. I think you're better off without it, Vic.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, shoot.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for calling in. Call us back in a little while and tell us about your deconstruction journey, all right? Talk to you later, Vic.
Yeah.
What a productive call.
Yeah, no, I love calls like that.
We love Vic. We stand Vic.
And it's okay. And like for the people that called in earlier in the show, it is okay if something comes up on a call and you don't know what to make of it. It is okay to pause and to say, well, we can talk about this later. It's okay to not dig your heels in and to say, I'm going to think more about this and come back. That's totally okay. And this is how you should handle this. I
appreciate Vic. Seriously, I do. I appreciate the fact that he's willing to stop and look at what he actually believes and learn it and like really evaluate it critically. That's good. I hope that Vic calls us back in a month and says, fuck, I'm an atheist, man. Never mind. We've got a couple more on the line. We are at $31,774 raised so far for Doctors Without Borders. And we've got a ton of calls left on the line. There's one, line number 22, that I saw you mentioned earlier. Do you want to jump into that one really quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one might be immensely frustrating for everyone listening because I've talked to this person before, and like I can tell you how it's going to go, but we'll see. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised by the call screen. What's written here? I don't think I will be, but we're going to try. Jackie, pronouns he, him, calling in from Miniature Squirrels, wants to talk about. There's literally just a list of philosophers here. Jackie, you're on the Atheist Experience with Ben and Forrest. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Man, I'm having a good day, but I got to tell you, you and I have talked a few times before, and it always comes back to you just like name dropping a bunch of philosophers that you've heard of and just saying the word substrate a whole bunch. And I feel like we very rarely get any actual meat out of these calls, and we never actually address anything worthwhile. And I based on the fact that you've typed in the call screen here is literally just the names of several philosophers. I'm not confident that we're going to get anywhere in this call, man. And I hope you prove me wrong.
Just trying to be optimistic. So are either of you guys familiar with Rene Girard, Claude Levi-Strauss, or Jean Piaget?
It doesn't matter.
Nope.
But
also something here that I wanted to bring up before we get too far into this. I heard you were calling into other shows misgendering me. What's that all about, dude?
Well, that sucks.
But I referred to you with female pronouns because of my personal religious beliefs, but
what the fuck?
I apologize for that.
Okay.
What the fuck is that?
Yeah, Jackie. Jackie. Okay, I'm gonna use female pronouns for you for the rest of the show.
Oh, that's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
But was that a yes or no to my earlier question about being familiar with these people?
I really don't care about any of these people, especially now that I know that you don't. No, especially because you know why. Especially, I really don't care. Is because you do not care about respecting other people, and so really, I don't give a shit. It sounds like your belief system isn't one I want to adopt at all.
Yeah, the fact that you're going to sit here and say that Ben's fundamental identity doesn't comport with your personal beliefs, so you're just not going to entertain it, and then you want us to sit here and dig into the shit of like a bunch of philosophers, like who cares what you think, Jackie? Honestly, why would anyone take you seriously if that's how you're going to start a conversation?
I'm willing to use female pronouns for Ben. I just want to ask the question. It's just a yes or no question.
I don't want you to use female pronouns for me. What the fuck, dude?
Ben uses male pronouns just as I do, and for the exact same reason that I do.
I meant to say male pronouns. Yeah, I'll use male pronouns. I just want to know if you guys are familiar with these people as a.
How incredibly charitable of you to decide to be a decent human being. That's so nice. Oh wow.
Wow, you're doing the bare minimum that you should be doing this whole time.
You've apparently been calling into other shows and being a complete asshole, but now you're willing to acquiesce Ben's humanity for a moment. Aren't you sweet?
Guys, so
do you remember a while ago, Jackie, when you and I talked and like I said something disparaging about Jordan Peterson and you said, I really like Jordan Peterson. I was like, yeah, we can all fucking tell. I think I said something at that time, and I believe Jesse did as well. I had Jesse Jurdak on that call, if I remember correctly. And we both said some things about how you're very young and you're going down a really shitty and dark path by listening to these absolute assholes who just use hatred and bigotry to expand their platform and to try to reach out to young men like you who are looking for guidance and looking for meaning. And we warned you about what would happen if you continued on that path. Does it mean anything to you that now you've got the two of us who I know I've been very charitable with you in the past, but like now we've gotten to this point where we're just so fucking sick of you being a dick and you're just treating Ben like crap. You're calling into this show to treat us both like crap, doing the same stuff that we've asked you not to do a million times. Does it resonate with you at all that this is not a cool way to make friends and influence people?
I wasn't trying to be crap. I was just asking if you guys are familiar with them, just so if we have common terminology.
Do you really think, Jackie, do you really think that that's what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. For Dr. Ben, I'm sorry. I should not have said that. I recognize that while my personal religious beliefs may say something, at the end of the day, I live in a society with other human beings, and I should have treated him with more dignity. And in retrospect, given just the general nature of how social interaction should go, I would have acted differently had I had the foresight.
Yeah. You know who doesn't have that foresight and who doesn't behave that way and who doesn't own up to their mistakes? Jordan fucking Peterson, dude. Quit listening to him.
Okay, none of the three people I listened are Jordan Peterson or have any or almost any relation. They're all three continental philosophers. So basically, Rene Girard and Claude Levi-Strauss and Jean Piaget are three members of a philosophical movement within continental tradition.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and just stop right there, Jackie. What is the point? I don't care about these people. I don't care what they said. I don't care why they said it. What is the specific argument that you have called to make? What is the thesis statement?
Basically, the idea that our entire Western intellectual tradition is built on a meta-narrative, and that meta-narrative goes back to Judeo-Christian values. So
okay,
basically,
if I grant you that, even if I grant you that, there is nothing particularly special or good about our Western intellectual tradition that you could not achieve without that meta-narrative. Judeo-Christianity still teaches and promotes evil things, and we are better off without it. So even if I grant your premise, Judeo-Christianity is still wrong. It is still a weight and an anchor to social progress. It still hinders society. It still is carcinogenic to individual minds. It's still a problem. Now what? Do you have anything of substance to say, or are you just going to parrot what these other people said?
I do have stuff of substance to say. So basically, so Girard formed a...
I don't care what they said. I care what you say, Jackie. What do you have to say about what I just said?
What I would have to say is the reason why we have any value hierarchy with perception, why we focus on some things over other things, why we value truth over ignorance, the divinity of the individual, and other things, is because we are part of a metaphysical substrate that goes back to.
I went over this with you the last time we talked, Jackie, and you can go back and watch that call and know exactly where we're just gonna go back in a circle of this again, because, and Jackie, something that I encourage you to do. I know you probably think it sounds really smart to use all these big words together, but the people oftentimes who know the most about a subject are able to put it in the most lay terms. And so the fact that you speak the way that you do is not impressive in any way. It just makes you sound like a tool. And I'm just going to say it here. Like, can you put your point? Can you put your point into a concise statement that everybody should be able to understand and engage with?
Yes. So with each act of perception comes the value hierarchy. What sits at the pinnacle of the value hierarchy, and why have you inherited that?
Are you reading a script?
Restated what you just said.
Because it sounds like you can't even paraphrase what you were saying. So I'm questioning if you even understand what you're saying, because you should be able to rephrase it if you understand what the meat of your claim is, right?
It's not a simple thing. This is like,
Forrest and I can sit here and explain the entire like physiology of like the human liver in very straightforward terms. Like, if we can do that, I'm pretty sure you could take something that is not simple and make it easier to understand. Right.
I literally teach, like, I break down like graduate level biology concepts on the internet every fucking time I do a show. And I use plain language all the time, because that's what you're supposed to do as an effective communicator, not just somebody who listens to Jordan Peterson, writes down a bunch of names and parrots a script. I've heard you say this exact shit too, Jackie. Like, I've talked to you several times. I've heard you say this exact stuff. I literally wish I could take a shot every time you said the word fucking substrate. It's just pointless. It's pointless. It doesn't go anywhere because you have no thought of your own.
I do. And
prove it.
With the exception of Jean Piaget.
Why?
Paraphrase.
No, prove it. Why is Christianity actually a good moral system?
Because it is the prerequisite for all knowledge acquisition and support.
You're just reading the same thing again.
Does that matter? Does that matter? After World War II, we used Nazi scientists to get a lot of knowledge about rockets and about biomedical science. We gained a tremendous amount of knowledge from Nazi experiments. Does that mean that Nazism is good because it was the prerequisite for that knowledge?
Nazism had nothing to do with knowledge acquisition. The knowledge acquisition didn't have.
Yes, it absolutely did. It absolutely did. The Nazi ideology allowed them to perform unethical experiments that gained a tremendous amount of knowledge that we would not have gained at that speed under ethical conditions. It's part of that whole dichotomy. You can do things unethically and get ahead really fast, or you can do them ethically and go slow. And we choose to go slow and do things the right way. But the Nazis fucking didn't. It was because of their belief system that other people were subhuman and inferior. Their belief system allowed them to gain that knowledge, and then we benefited from that knowledge through Project Paperclip, bringing them over here and putting them in our society and giving them immunity and absolving them of their crimes, despite the fact that they were very much guilty. They and their ideology led to these discoveries. Does that mean that their ideology is good?
It, in some second-handed way, led to technological progress.
Is technological progress worth that? Was that a good thing?
No, not even that. Not even was it worth it. You said Christianity is good because it led to the progress of our society. I'm saying here's another evil ideology that led to progress. Does the utility of the idea mean that it is good? Is Nazism a good ideology, Jackie?
No. Nazism is not
Why?
a good ideology.
Why?
Because it inherent in Nazi ideology is the idea that certain groups of people, whether they're Jewish or disabled or what have you, should be treated as second-class citizens and stripped of human.
Precisely like in the Bible, where it says that Hebrew and non-Hebrew slaves should be treated differently.
And the reason why the abolitionists in America abolished slavery was because they are part of a Christian substrate.
No.
And the reason why slavery stuck around for as long as it did in America was because the people who owned slaves were part of a Christian substrate who believed in the curse of Ham and that black people were made to be slaves. But none of that answers the question, Jackie. Does the function of an ideology speak anything to the morality of that ideology?
Well, no. If the harm outweighs the good, then yes, obviously.
Then what you said earlier is bullshit, Jackie. If the function of an idea does not speak to the morality of the idea, then when I asked you earlier, why is Christianity good? And your response was because it's led to all this progress, that was a bullshit answer. So I'm going to ask you again, why is Christianity a good philosophy, a good ideology?
Because you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying any
answer the question.
Worldview is good.
Answer the question.
The exact same answer I gave earlier. But can I explain?
Which is?
Because you're not. Which is that it serves as a basis for why we have any value judgments at all. But can I explain that?
So it's
the difference in the analogy. That's part of it, but I'm saying the very prerequisite for the concept of good and evil has to be religious, by definition.
No, it does not, and we have demonstrated that to you several times. Ben and I are both atheists. We have concepts of good and evil that are completely detached from any religion, and they are certainly inherently detached from Christianity. Are we lying, or are you, Jackie?
I think on a subconscious level, the reason why you value things like the respect for the divinity of the individual, the idea that truth will set you free, comes from the fact that you're part of a Christian heritage. But that doesn't mean that you consciously accept it. So it's part of your collective unconscious using Corey Young's.
Why would the truth setting me free be a part of a Christian narrative when I value truth from science, from critical thinking, and the Bible tells me to believe things like a child with childlike faith and to not lean on my own understanding and go against everything that I value in science?
Even the most staunch critics of Christianity, like Friedrich Nietzsche, said the only reason why Christianity fell in the West was because it taught the West to value truth over ignorance.
Am I Friedrich Nietzsche?
No.
Then you should grapple with what I said, not with what he said. I am telling you that I value science and critical thinking, and the Bible says, lean not on your own understanding, have childlike faith. Those are two contradictory belief systems, Jackie.
But the belief in a transcendental order that will set you free is...
no, they are not.
Logos.
Only one of them is.
Logos set you free.
Only one of those is belief in the transcendental. The other one is belief in objective reality that I can explore through science.
Which is
there is no necessary Christianity there.
If it's a transcendental, eternal value for truth over ignorance, the idea that the logos will set you free, as opposed.
I think I don't accept, Jackie. I don't accept that you know what the word transcendental means. There's a lot of words that you use. I don't know if you know what they mean. I don't know if you know what most of your position actually means. Like, because you just resort to quoting other people. And I think Forrest and I both agree you should question anybody you're going to be listening to.
Yep.
And yeah, I think understand the things that you're saying. Can you even tell us what you mean by transcendental? Values which are eternal.
No. I just Googled the word transcendental because maybe I'm fucking wrong, right? Just to double check. And I came up with things that are spiritual or non-physical. So not even eternal, but even like, so I'm not talking about anything that is either spiritual or non-physical. I'm talking about objective physical reality that I am exploring through science. No part of that is eternal.
It is
The universe is not eternal.
retreat over ignorance.
Jackie, you're just going back to your script. Let's change the language. Jackie, I'm going to change the language here because this is what I'm gathering is the same argument that you're bringing, is that in order to be moral, you have to have a spiritual system that you're going off of. Is that your argument?
Yes, you need to have a organizing principle, a spirit to adventure, which organizes your value of.
Okay, off the script. We're going to go because you just agreed with my and this is how you make a statement concise, right? So I said something here that you agreed with is your argument that you are asserting that in order to be moral, you have to have a spiritual system that gives you that morality. That's a way simpler way to go about it. You don't need all the flowery, stupid language.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just talk about this. Okay. Yeah, we're just going to talk about.
Read any continental philosophers?
I do not care about that. I do not care about that. We are going to be talking about spiritual, like if you need something spiritual to have morality. Can you demonstrate anything that is spiritual as existing?
Consciousness.
I do not accept that.
There is no reason to believe that consciousness is spiritual at all. There's no evidence for that whatsoever.
So, you believe that everything is physical processes and we can't control our decisions?
Nope. And those are not a dichotomy.
Then where does free will come from if everything is material?
Here's a fun game.
You are putting words in our mouth too. You're smuggling in the concept of free will. Now we did not agree to or disagree with. That wasn't even part of this conversation yet. We are just talking about, can you demonstrate that something is spiritual?
Yes, consciousness. The reason we have free will is because we have a non-material consciousness.
How can something non-material, how can something if we're talking about spiritual things or like non-material things that interact with our physical reality, there has to be some way then, if we are suggesting it that it interacts with our physical reality, we should be able to see those things that are produced by that interaction, right? So if there are spiritual things, how do we detect these spiritual things? Because I would say consciousness, we can see evidence of consciousness being related to brain function, which in these very unethical experiments that people have done in the past.
It's not the same thing.
It's an emergent property. So you cannot have, yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That's exactly what I was going to say next, is that consciousness is very clearly an emergent property of the electrochemical activity of a brain. And I can demonstrate that by showing you that if I change a brain, I change the consciousness that is associated with it. I change the level of consciousness. I change the expression of the consciousness. I can change everything about a person by changing their brain. Now I need you to demonstrate how consciousness is separate from a brain and actually exists in this other and immaterial way. Can you give me one example of consciousness that is independent of matter?
For example, the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said the world is will and representation to everything.
And here we are again.
These other philosophers.
What do you think, Jackie? Can you give me an example of consciousness independent of matter?
I am a dualist, but that is just my leap of faith. But
I'm going to ask again. Can you give me an example of consciousness independent of matter? Yes or no?
I can't give you that right now, but there's some people who don't even believe matter exists. I don't agree with those.
So I don't care what other people believe. I'm talking to you, Jackie. I'm not talking to your philosopher friends. I'm not talking to Jordan Peterson. I'm not talking to other people. I'm talking to you. I want to know what you think. I want your ideas to try to stand on their own 2 feet for a change. You cannot demonstrate consciousness existing outside of matter or independent of matter. I can demonstrate that consciousness is dependent on matter. Which one of us has a more solid claim?
I don't believe either has been demonstrated.
So you have no evidence for your belief. I have evidence for mine, and you think that we're both standing on shaky ground here? Seriously?
Well, in terms of, do I have evidence for my beliefs? No, but you also don't have evidence because, for example, it could be that everything is consciousness, panpsychism. It could be that what you observe as matter is actually consciousness.
Jackie, no, you're playing with the definition. You're playing with the definition.
The evidence that I have demonstrated is that consciousness is tied to brain function. I can demonstrate that by altering brains and thereby altering the emergent consciousness. It doesn't matter.
Are made of
it doesn't
consciousness. It could be.
It doesn't matter if that's the case, Jackie. Even if that's the case, even if idealism is true and consciousness is what really exists and brains don't exist and that matter, it doesn't matter. I can still demonstrate that the effects and expression and presentation of consciousness is affected by the physical structure of a brain. I can demonstrate my claims. You cannot.
For my specific view on consciousness, but that's not the same as it being completely unreasonable. But
Jackie, hold on. This is not what it is unreasonable. You cannot demonstrate. You cannot demonstrate that consciousness is spiritual. You cannot demonstrate that anything is purely spiritual. And so, in that, you cannot say that morality has to have a basis in things that are spiritual, because you cannot demonstrate anything being spiritual. So how can you make that leap from things that are spiritual and morality is tied to things that are spiritual?
Moral definition involves, again, a hierarchy of judgments, and those hierarchy of judgments are nested in our subconscious and all blah, 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 right? And
I'm amazed that you're willing to accept all that after you've just demonstrated that you have no evidence for what you believe. You have nothing to back up what you said. And yet you're like, oh, totally cool with me. I'm going to keep believing in this thing that I have no way to justify.
I also want to throw out there, this whole thing started with you saying that we have this like deep-seated belief in Christianity. We grew up around Christianity. We have this subconscious belief in the Christian worldview, and that's where we're drawing this morality, this hierarchy, and all these things from. You understand that people who were not raised around Christianity, people who were around before Christianity existed, people who were around in places where Christianity had never touched yet, had morality and had hierarchies, right?
In some places, but in most of those moralities, especially in like...
So then your premise is falsified. If other people can get moral systems without need for Christianity, I can too. And just because I grew up around Christianity does not mean that I subconsciously buy into it. In fact, I rebel against it at every opportunity because I believe it is an evil system. I am a good person because I don't agree and don't align with Christianity. And you have still yet to give me one reason why Christianity is actually good.
I've given you it like, I don't know how many times now.
You've said some bullshit that we've refuted a couple of times, but you've yet to give me anything meaningful. And when backed into a corner, all you do is quote another philosopher or fall back into a script.
People follow other people's behavior, and the reason you followed the behavior and embody the behavior you do is because you have part of your unconscious, which is part of a tradition, and that tradition is nested in something greater than you. Unless you're saying that our beliefs are completely removed from socialization, which I highly doubt you would back into. You grew up and played games.
Something greater than me is the civilization that I live in and my deep caring for other people, not a God and not Christianity. Meaningless in that, buzzwords is what I'm getting from you again.
And even in that, Jackie, you just demonstrated even in that it does not have to be a Judeo-Christian background.
Yep. Other cultures did it just fine without Christianity. I do it just fine without Christianity. You can do it just fine without Christianity too. You just have to pull your head out of several philosophers' asses. And with that, Jackie, it's been 25 minutes, and we've, as predicted, quoted a bunch of people that nobody cares about and gotten absolutely nowhere. So we're going to move on, and hopefully next time you'll bring some thoughts of your own. Unbelievably frustrating to hear this guy call in again and again and do the same thing. And like, I think he's been banned from other shows because this is all he does. And what sucks is that he's a young kid. I think he's 19 or something. He's at an age where he could be influenced so easily by assholes, and he clearly has. Mm-hmm. And like, I just hope that someday he starts to think critically about the people that he's listening to and maybe starts to stand on his own 2 feet. Because like, yikes, dude, it's setting down a bad path, and I feel bad for him, but holy shit, I am out of tolerance for it.
Oh yeah, same. And I really wanted to yell at him about the pronouns thing because it's unacceptable, and I will not let people get away with that.
Absolutely.
We're going to be respectful of each other in this place. Like, you're in our house now, as quoting some callers earlier. This is, if the world is God's house, at least this show is our house, and we don't tolerate that bullshit here.
Yeah, that's it's just not okay. I think you held his feet to the fire appropriately on that. And honestly, like, if he was any older, I probably would have been a lot harsher on him. I'm frustrated with him. I make no call. No. I don't hide that at all. But like, I would have been a lot more of a dick to him if he had been 20 something than if he'd been a teenager. But like, man, even with that, it's really, really, really difficult not to just be deeply annoyed by somebody who is allowing themselves to be swept up in such hateful and vapid ideology at such a young age. I'm going to do at least one more very quickly, because this is somebody that I encouraged to call in. We've got Nate calling in from Nipple Yarn, wants to talk about deconstruction from the view of a younger kid without critical thinking. And then we'll see if you want to do any of the last theists that we have on the line after that. But really, really, really quickly, Nate, you're on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and Ben. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm all right. It's a pleasure to call in.
It's a pleasure to have you.
So
what's going on with you?
I told the call screener. Like I told this call screener, I deconstructed, at least I started when I was like 14 or 15. I only really like finished my deconstruction when I was like 16. But I mean, ever since I was like single digits in age, I was looking at the stuff that my parents were telling me and like the practices that we were doing, like the smallest stuff, like ripping toilet paper on the Sabbath, and just thinking about how like inconceivably useless that is, like as a rule. So, I mean, if you don't mind, I wrote down a list so I don't get sidetracked. Just some of the things that I noticed when I was a kid that usually wouldn't be brought up in a call like this, because there's a lot of like adults who deconstructed as adults. But I mean, I haven't heard a single person talk about the stuff that they thought about as a kid. So I figured that'd be interesting.
Ben, do you have any objections?
No. I'm
okay, yeah.
No objections right now. Yeah.
We're already 40 minutes overtime, so let's hear a couple of things. We're not going to go through the whole list if that's okay, but like a few things I'm down to discuss a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm an ex-Jew. Obviously, I still identify with like the culture, but I'm full atheist. And the first thing that really sparked it was the idea that you're not supposed to rip toilet paper on the Sabbath. That was like one of the main things, because it counts as work or something. I don't exactly understand, but like I started ripping toilet paper because I can't be bothered to use tissues. It's gross. It feels weird. I don't like the feeling on my butt. It's uncomfortable. And so I started doing that. And like, I don't see a God. No one came and yelled at me. I didn't get smote.
The second that TP ripped, you were doomed for hell.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, like that's just one thing. I also wrote down like buying movie theater sour drop candy. There's like little candy dispensers in the bathrooms of movie theaters, and I'd sneak some quarters in when we went to the movies, and I'd buy one. And they're not kosher. Kosher is like the stuff that you are not allowed to eat, and they weren't kosher, so I wasn't allowed to have any. But I snuck them in anyway, and again, I didn't get smote. No one was mad at me. They didn't find out. I mean, maybe I'm destined for hell, but I don't think so.
You wouldn't know, because the second you ate one of those sin drops, you became separated from Jeebus, and that's what happened.
You know, maybe that's why they were so sour and so strong. It was a warning.
Exactly. That was the devil you were tasting.
Honestly, devil tasted pretty good. I don't know.
He's known to. So you were going through these things. You had these rules and regulations on you, and as you started to test them, that you noticed there was no real actual consequence. Like, is that kind of like the common thread through your whole deconstruction? It's just you kept trying the waters and you kept noticing that it was okay?
I mean, it wasn't just noticing that it was okay. It was just like the randomness of each thing, like like having the lights on during the Sabbath. I didn't even start doing that, but like just thinking about the idea that you're not allowed to turn the lights on or turn on a phone or like carry a goddamn pencil, like if there's a pencil on the floor, you're not supposed to put it away. And just the idea that like even if you're not breaking it or testing the waters, the idea that that's a rule that exists just at all is absolutely absurd to me.
They killed a bro for picking up sticks in the Bible. And he wasn't even Jewish. He wasn't even one of the guys. He was just a nearby man collecting firewood. And they killed him.
God's not going to do anything. God's not going to do anything about the people dying of hunger. But he cares so much about whether or not you picked up a pencil on the Sabbath. Like, that's definitely worth more of his time.
Or eat some bathroom candy, which I can't believe is a thing. Like, that's its own problem. That's the real sin, is that they put a fucking candy dispenser in the turlets. But like, dude,
honestly,
the
worst thing, I was using my computer on the Sabbath. That's a big no-no. I mean, I'm probably I'd give it like at least a year and a half until I get struck down by like multiple bolts of lightning at the same time. I'm screwed.
From the computer. It's electronic. It's poetic justice.
Absolutely. So yeah.
Well, Nate, I'm glad to hear that this deconstruction story is a positive one. I'm glad to see these things are working well for you and that you're free of these chains now. Do you have a particular thing you wanted to share with the audience today?
I mean, one last thing. Victor, 100% a vampire. No discussion.
Fuck you immediately. All right, we're moving on. Goodbye, Nate.
All right.
Take care. Nate is in the fan Discord for Roll for Initiative. There's a fan-run Discord, and said that he's always wanted to call to AXP, and I was like, do it. I had no idea what the call was about. It was a very positive, happy thing. Dude's deconstructed and has a great experience about it. That's awesome. For the last call of the day, Ben, do you have a preference between number 3 or number 13?
They both seem good. We can go with 13, just because it's you and I together, and I think we're the tag team for this one.
Okay, sounds good. Really quickly, I'm just totaling up where we're at right now. As of this moment, we have raised $32,468 for Doctors Without Borders. Yo, this is what I'm talking about. We're showing the world that this community is ready to show up and put in the work and make things better. And that makes me so incredibly happy. So incredibly
Atheists
cool.
Are going to help undo the garbage that God has caused.
That's what I'm talking about. And we just got another $5 donated from an anonymous donor just then. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. I'll put that in the total. That brings us up to 32,493. Thank you so much. We're now going to take the last call of the show. This person's been waiting on the line for 2 hours, as were several other people that were dropped. We're so sorry we didn't get your call, but holy crap, we're already way over time. We've got Kevin, pronouns he, him, calling in from Moldy Anus, has a question about the idea that 1.7% of the population is intersex, and I think you're right. We're a great tag team for this one. Kevin, you're on AXP with Forrest and Ben. You're the last call of the day. How you doing?
I am doing really well, and you are right that you are the tag team. I've had this question for like a week and a half just floating around my head. I'm like, I would love to find a stream with Ben and Forrest on it to help answer this question, and I didn't think it was ever going to happen on the other network that I won't mention for reasons, but the fact that I happened to get in at the last call, like, I can see why some people think coincidences are evidence for God. Like, this definitely feels like kismet, as the previous caller might say. Anyways, by the way,
Kismet.
the correct interpretation of the Massachusetts anagram would be misidentified Archaeopteryx, because there have been fossils of theropod footprints found in Massachusetts, and because Archaeopteryx is part of the theropod clade, they could have been mistaken or misidentified as an Archaeopteryx. I wanted to
All right.
real quick.
Hell yeah.
For the
I'm here for it.
So I wanted to call in because I debate on Twitter 2 years ago, whatever.
I don't recommend that.
People who are arguing that sex is binary. I
know the people you're talking about. I've been in that debate on Twitter this forever, but notably this past week. But yeah, so I know exactly the people that you were arguing with.
Yep, me too. Unfortunately, I've been there.
Yep.
Yeah. So every time people bring this up, I bring up kind of the statistic about roughly 1.7% of people being intersex, and the whole population. I usually use Japan or Mexico. I heard Forrest, I think last week or week before last, use Russia. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It's still a pretty significant portion of the population on a global scale.
Over 130 million people.
Large, yeah, bigger than many large countries. The question I have, and the question that was brought up that I didn't really know how to respond to, is because according to the paper, How Sexually Dimorphic Are We by Blacklist et al., and I can give you references to that, although the easiest one is the title, because the DOI is a long string of like alphanumeric and special characters and weird stuff.
Right. There should be a PMID, which is shorter if you want to give that, but I have the paper already. I've used it as a source for the new Sex and Sensibility video I'm working on.
Yeah, I was not able to find a PMID. I don't know if this is even on PubMed. I could be wrong. I just haven't found it. Anyway, so the issue that some people seem to take with this is that of that 1.7%, 1.5% is attributed to late onset congenital adrenal hyperplasia, which is a condition
which
XX
does not matter.
That happens.
It doesn't change a thing.
It doesn't change anything. and the whole debate, and
part I'm trying to.
Yeah, and so the whole discussion ends up leading to the gender criticals. Essentially, like if you take them and back them into the corner, it will get them into having to admit that there are exceptions, and they will say that the exception does not make the rule. Therefore, we just ignore the exceptions. Well, as absolute garbage argument, as many of us would know. And one of my favorite pushbacks is to relate this percentage to thyroid diseases. I believe Graves' disease has like a 2% prevalence, so like a little bit higher than like all of the intersex conditions. If I said that, well, normal people have functioning thyroids, so I should just assume that anybody that comes to me has a normal thyroid, and it's so unlikely that they have Graves' disease that I just shouldn't even bother worrying about it. I should just assume they have a normal thyroid. Is that a good idea for me to do? And most people, like, if you really think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, a small percentage doesn't mean anything in that sense, because they still are humans and they still need to be cared for appropriately. And it, at the end of the day, doesn't matter outside of the context of their medical care. So it's just silly to think that like a small percentage negates those people in the population, but also that we should just treat those people as if their needs don't matter. It's wild to me. And yeah, like, I don't know if you've gotten to that point in the corner, or if there's another argument point that you wanted to ask about.
Yeah, I also want to point out that 1.7%, here I have that source from the UN. So like, I'm not saying that the UN is right because they're the UN. This is from the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner here. This report on intersex people, which cites that 1.7 number, 1% number as well. I'm just saying that like maybe the people, the good people at the UN might have read these studies as well and come up and like maybe these random people on Twitter might not be the only source. But that's just me, you know? Also, the World Health Organization uses the same numbers, if I remember correctly. So again, best doctors and scientists in the world are on one side of this issue, and some folks on Twitter are not, and that's just fine with me. And like, I think, Ben, you hit on something really important there. You're talking about, you know, like just the goalpost always moves. It always moves. It is always you're either XX or XY. And then we bring up, well, no, there's you know, Klinefelter syndrome, and there's Sawyer syndrome, and there's Turner syndrome, and there's all these different things. And it's like, well, no, because those, you know, all these chromosomal anomalies where you have XYY or XXY or XXX or all these are, those aren't real. Or X0, you could have that. Those aren't. It's really XY is always male and XX is always female. Okay, well, there's Sawyer syndrome where you could have XY and still have a completely female phenotype. And there's actually case studies of people, women with Sawyer syndrome, having XY chromosomes and having giving birth to healthy children by their own bodies. And there's also De La Chapelle syndrome with, you know, you could have XX chromosomes still be completely developmentally phenotypically male. Well, yeah, but there's still the SRY. The SRY gene is what really is the thing. So some cases of De La Chapelle, you have either part or all of the SRY gene that translocates over. Sometimes not, though. You could have epistasis. You could have, because like there's not actually just one gene or just one chromosome. There's enough variation on the sex chromosomes alone to produce a wide variety, but the sex chromosomes are neither necessary nor sufficient by themselves to produce the sexed bodies that we have. That's just not true. And also all sex characteristics and traits exist on a spectrum on themselves, because sex is a multivariate system with no single determining factor and no factor that has just two outcomes or two options. So like that doesn't work either. And then we get to, well, okay, fine, but it did, because the chromosomes don't actually matter. What it really is genitalia. And it's like, okay, Guiva Doce people, like it literally means penis.
Yeah, and what they get to, my most favorite that they get to is they'll go to gametes, and they'll go to the large immobile gamete or the small mobile gamete, and then you bring up the example, which the case study, or at least one of the case studies that you mentioned is one that I cite frequently, which was a case of chimerism, but with predominantly XY genotype with a functional SRY who did carry a pregnancy to term, did not know she had that until her daughter was karyotyped and had the same condition. But they'll go to that and you'll point out, okay, so if someone does not have gametes, then what sex are they? And then here's what their new goalpost move is, but it's about the body that was organized around the gametes, which is funny because that goes straight back to the other characteristics that we previously debunked. So they're just going back in a circle now. And like,
don't even get me started on. I was gonna say, and just the body is organized for these gametes, except for people with ovotestes, because ovotestes exist where you have ovarian tissue and testicular tissue in the same organ. But that's different.
And that's the one I brought up after that. And then they'll go from there and they'll say, well, every intersex condition is either a male or female intersex condition. And somebody even commented on I cited a case study of an example of ovotestes, and the person said that is a male DSD. And I was like, how do you get somebody who is completely 50-50 and you're going to, like, I went down the path of asking them, like, okay, what factor then assigned them to the male side?
Right.
Because no matter what, you have, if you're going to adhere to a binary, you have to have a factor that every time would assign you to one of the two options. Right. Otherwise, any other options, and you have an option that is not either of the two.
Right. It's what you want, a uterus. You could have persistent Mullerian duct syndrome and have a penis and a uterus. You could what do you want? You Guiva Doce people are born phenotypically female and develop a penis during puberty. The word Guiva Doce means penis at 12 because that's when you grow one all of a sudden. Like there's so many options and so many examples and so many ways this doesn't work. And when you combine all of these things, a population the size of Russia doesn't fit into two boxes. And so, like, dude, I think it's like, it reminds me, I think you and I, Ben, did a show where somebody called in was saying, no, really, it's binary. And we literally at one point showed a picture. We showed a picture of a gradient from red to blue with purple in the middle. And we were like, what color is right here in the middle? If this is binary. And he's like, yeah, well, it's actually red and blue at the same time. That means it's binary. And it's like, come on, man.
And that's what they'll do. It's just a circle of moving the goalposts.
Yep. It's wild. Anyway, we've been rambling because we deal with this all the time, Kevin. I'm sorry. But was there anything else specific you wanted to bring up or that you wanted to talk to us about?
This is why I wanted to call the both of you together, because I knew that you would have so much to say on this topic. And I'm a little bit sad that it's at the end of the show and I don't want to take up too much more of your time. The only other thing I wanted to bring up is just this ridiculous idea that this one specific condition that makes up such a large portion of it, the argument that was given to me was because these people with late onset CAH, have a mass of adrenaline and other androgens flooding their system at a late stage in their life, does that make them not women? And I thought that was such a weird question to put out. And I just
it's very interesting, actually. It's very interesting because you can have acquired CAH, and so you can have it hereditary, but if you have other ways to where you're impacting adrenal function, you can induce it through if someone had certain toxicities that had caused the adrenal glands to not function as well, et cetera, things that would have caused that, or any diseases like tumors can you can cause that. So if you think about that, that is a fantastic argument for how your sex can change over time, and how actually, because my perspective, a lot of people will say that we know that we can't change our sex. I disagree with that. You can change, because sex is multivariate. You can change the things that matter. And that is a way, if people are going to say that CAH is one of these different things, well, I mean, it is a way that your sex changes over time. If we're considering all these factors. So
I was about to say that
you can pin them.
That means sex isn't immutable.
And so you can pin them into the corner with that and say, okay, so your sex can change. So then why are trans people not allowed to be that exception? If we allow for exceptions, why are trans people not allowed to be those exceptions too? So that's where my line of questioning usually goes. If it even gets there, usually they'll run around in circles and not even let you get to that point.
Anyway, Kevin, good luck on Twitter. Also, if I could give you any advice, get the fuck off Twitter.
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Yeah, your phone might have gotten asleep.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I wasn't sure if my mic went out. Sometimes it has issues. Anyways, I just wanted to say thank you. That was amazing. And honestly, it brought me to a place where I'm realizing not only is sex not binary, it's not even necessarily static. And this idea that sex can change over time because, as Dr. Ben said, it's multivariate. It's not just one thing. It's 20 different things all smushed together into a thing that we've decided to place in a neat, tiny little box where it's actually this much bigger, much more complex thing, and it can change. And that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. This was the dream team for this question, and I really appreciate the fact that you guys go online and you do this and you answer these questions for people like me and people who are maybe less curious and more opinionated. Either way, I appreciate everything you do. Thank you so much. And people who haven't donated to Doctors Without Borders, please do it. They're an amazing group.
Yes.
Just wanted to,
they are. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate the recognition that we are not well. That's the last call of the show, and I'm going to go and do one more tally really quickly and just see where we're at right now. So while we're wrapping up, before I do this tally, get your final donations in. It'll be the last number that I read. Random Electronic 2.0 donated $50 during that call. Thank you so much. An anonymous donor donated $20 during that call. And Confusion24 donated $20. Another anonymous donor donated $1,000 during that call. $1,000 to Doctors Without Borders. Oh my glob, dude. Jesus of Christ land, you incredibly charitable people. We got a $50 anonymous donation, a $10 anonymous donation. Mahalialaga donated $7. We got a ton of donations while we were taking that call, and that's awesome. That's going to save so many lives. That's going to help so many fucking people. So here's your chance. Throw your last donations in. I'm going to quickly tally up what we've got here. And while we do that, Dr. Ben, it's always a pleasure getting to work with you, my friend. So if you have any last words, anything you want to send us out on, I'd be willing to hear it.
Be kind to people. You don't need a God to tell you to be kind to people. We can clearly see, based on these donations coming in, we are way better at caring for people than all of the gods, I'm going to argue. So good job, atheists. I'm kind of like speechless by all of this. It's incredible.
It's really, really, really cool. Another $2 from David Hacksaw, another $20 from an anonymous donor there, and adding in the now $20,640 just from the YouTube thing alone. That brings us up to $33,671.51 to save lives all around the world. You guys are all amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your donations. Thank you so much for helping us help people everywhere. The fundraiser doesn't end with the end of this stream. It's going to go on a little further, but that $33,000 is the number that I'm probably going to send off to sponsors here in a minute and see if we can get people to help us do more cool charity events in the future. Thank you so much to the ACA for allowing me to attach this to their shows and for helping me raise more money for this amazing organization. It's really cool when a charity helps another charity in this way. That's just fucking dope to me. So thank you guys so much for indulging me and letting me be weird. Thank you, Dr. Ben, for being so cool and for hanging out with me. Thank you to Jamie the Blind Limey for being in the studio in the background here as our backup host, just being expressive and weird and putting up with our strangeness and making me laugh the whole show.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I have this wonderful cookbook for you, Forrest. It has a lovely recipe for apple strudel, but also has a section on eating humans. Is that a good cookbook? No.
Yes, right.
And no one, and even the Austrian painter and people I can think of in my own life, no one deserves infinite punishment. I don't care how bad you were. Anyway, great show, guys.
Yeah, infinite punishment for a finite crime is kind of a fucked up concept. With that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, non-binary pals of all ages, thank you so much for tuning in to the Atheist Experience. We'll see you next time. Have an awesome rest of your day and never stop learning. Bye-bye.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your lies.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.